Welcome. Find a comfortable position, let your eyes close gently, and prepare to drift off as we explore 30 unbelievable facts about Disney that sound like magic. Tonight, we're going on a quiet journey through the most magical place on Earth, but not the Disney you think you know. We're going to discover the secrets hidden in plain sight, the illusions you walk past every day without noticing, the engineering marvels disguised as fairy tales, the psychology carefully crafted to make you feel wonder without ever knowing why. Disney isn't just entertainment. It's a masterclass in human perception, in architecture, in storytelling, in creating experiences so seamless that you never see the machinery behind the magic. For decades, Imagineers have been designing, building, and perfecting these hidden details. Most guests never notice them, but they feel them. They feel the magic, even if they can't explain where it comes from. So settle in, relax, and let these remarkable facts wash over you like a gentle tide. There's no need to remember everything. Just let the words flow, and allow yourself to drift towards sleep as we peel back the curtain on the hidden Disney. The one that exists just beneath the surface. The one that makes the magic real. Fact number 1. The Utilidor second floor secret. Let's start with something fundamental. Something that changes how you think about the Magic Kingdom entirely. When you walk down Main Street, USA, when you stand in front of Cinderella Castle, when you explore Fantasyland or Tomorrowland, you're not walking on the ground. You're walking on the second floor. The entire Magic Kingdom is built on top of a massive network of tunnels called Utilidors. But not in the way you might imagine. Most people, when they hear about tunnels under Disney World, picture exactly that. Tunnels dug into the ground, carved beneath the park, like a subway system or a basement. And that would make sense almost anywhere else. But Florida is not almost anywhere else. Florida is a swamp. The water table is incredibly high. In many places, if you dig down just a few feet, you hit water. Digging extensive tunnels below ground level in Central Florida is nearly impossible, or at least impractically expensive and complicated. So Disney didn't dig down. They built up. The Utilidors aren't underground at all. They're at ground level. They built the tunnel system first, right on the natural surface of the land. Miles and miles of corridors, rooms, storage areas, break rooms, all constructed at ground level. And then, they needed to hide them. They needed to create the park above. The solution was audacious. They dredged the Seven Seas Lagoon, that beautiful body of water in front of the Magic Kingdom, where the ferries and monorails cross, where the contemporary and Polynesian resorts sit on its shores. When they dug out that lagoon, they generated millions of cubic yards of dirt and sand. And they used it. They transported all that earth and piled it on top of the Utilidors. They created a massive artificial hill, 14 feet high in some places, covering the entire tunnel system. Then they built the Magic Kingdom on top of that hill. Every building, every attraction, every pathway, all sitting on what is essentially a giant earthen platform covering the Utilidors below. So when you enter the Magic Kingdom, you're actually walking up. The entrance is lower. As you proceed down Main Street toward the castle, you're gradually ascending this artificial elevation. You don't notice because the grade is so gentle, because everything is designed to feel natural. But you are walking uphill on a man-made mountain built specifically to hide a service level beneath your feet. This solves so many problems. It means cast members can move around the park without being seen by guests. A cast member in a Frontierland costume doesn't have to walk through Tomorrowland to get to their area. They go through the Utilidors. Garbage removal happens below, invisible to guests. Deliveries arrive through the tunnels. The cafeteria where cast members eat, the costume distribution center, the administrative offices, the computer systems that run the park. All of this exists in the Utilidors. It also means the park above can maintain its illusion perfectly. You never see a trash truck. You never see someone in a goofy costume walking through an area where Goofy shouldn't be. You never see the machinery of the park, because it's all happening on what is actually the ground floor, while you're enjoying the magic on the second floor. The scale of this is difficult to comprehend. The Utilidors span nearly the entire Magic Kingdom. They're color-coded for navigation. Different sections have different colored lines on the walls, so cast members can find their way. There are designated routes, traffic patterns, even a small electric vehicle system for transporting goods and people through the longer corridors. And perhaps most remarkably, this entire system, this engineering feat that required moving millions of cubic yards of earth, that required building a park on top of an artificial hill in a swamp, was designed and built in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The construction techniques were far less advanced than today, but they pulled it off. They created something that still functions perfectly over 50 years later. So the next time you visit Magic Kingdom, remember this. You are not walking on the ground. You are walking on the second floor of an elaborate system. Below you, at ground level, is a city unto itself. A city of corridors and rooms, of cast members and equipment, of the machinery that makes magic possible. It's hidden perfectly, invisibly, beneath your feet. And you would never know unless someone told you. That's the genius of it. That's the Disney difference. The magic you see is built on foundations you don't. Fact number 2, the go-away green illusion. Now let's talk about something you've seen hundreds of times at Disney parks, but probably never noticed. A color. A very specific, carefully engineered color called go-away green. And once you know about it, once you understand what it does, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Or rather, you'll start realizing you've been not seeing it everywhere. Disney parks are designed to be immersive. When you're in Fantasyland, you should feel like you're in a fairy tale village. When you're on Main Street, USA, you should feel transported to a turn-of-the-century American town. Every detail matters. The architecture, the music, the smells pumped into the air, the costumes, the landscaping. Disney spends extraordinary amounts of money and effort creating these environments. But there are practical realities. Modern theme parks need infrastructure. They need trash cans, obviously. They need utility boxes for electrical systems. They need fences to keep guests in safe areas. They need doors that lead to backstage areas. They need equipment, signage, air conditioning units, all the mundane elements of any large facility. And these things can break immersion. A bright green trash can in the middle of Fantasyland doesn't look magical. It looks like a trash can. So Disney's color specialists developed a solution. They created a color specifically designed to be ignored by the human brain. They studied color perception, how our eyes and minds process visual information, what catches our attention, and what fades into the background. And they developed a shade of green, a muted, grayish, slightly bluish green, that is maximally forgettable. They call it go-away green, though it's also sometimes called no-see-um green, or bypass green. The exact formula is proprietary, closely guarded, but you can see it in action throughout the parks. Look at the fences around areas guests shouldn't enter. Look at the utility boxes and equipment enclosures. Look at certain trash cans. Look at the doors that lead backstage. They're painted this specific shade of green. And here's the remarkable thing. Your brain ignores them. Not consciously. You can see them if you look directly at them. But in your peripheral vision, in the general sweep of your gaze as you take in a scene, go-away green items fade away. They blend into the background. They don't draw your eye. They don't register as important or interesting. Your brain essentially decides they're not worth paying attention to and filters them out of your conscious awareness. This is perceptual psychology in action. Our brains are constantly processing enormous amounts of visual information, but we can't consciously attend to all of it. We'd be overwhelmed. So our visual system prioritizes. Bright colors get attention. Contrasts get attention. Movement gets attention. But muted, neutral tones that don't stand out, that don't signal anything important, those get filtered out. They're still processed, but at a subconscious level. We don't think about them. Disney exploits this ruthlessly and brilliantly. By painting all their non-themed elements in go-away green, they make them invisible without actually hiding them. The trash can is still there. You can walk up to it and throw something away. But when you're taking in the beauty of the castle, when you're watching a parade, when you're immersed in the environment, your brain doesn't flag the trash can as something to notice. It just goes away. There's actually a companion color too. Blending blue, sometimes called bye-bye blue. It's used in similar ways, particularly in areas where green might stand out too much. Same principle, different hue. A specific shade of grayish blue that your brain finds unremarkable and easy to ignore. These colors represent the incredible attention to detail that defines Disney. They could have just painted utility boxes brown or gray, but they went further. They researched color psychology. They developed custom paints. They trained their maintenance teams to use these specific colors on specific items, all to maintain immersion, all to keep you in the magic without seeing the mechanisms that create it. And it works. Most guests go to Disney dozens of times and never consciously notice go away green. They experience its effects without knowing it exists. They enjoy cleaner sightlines, more immersive environments, better themed areas, all because someone thought about what color to paint the trash cans. That's the level of care Disney applies to everything. That's why the parks feel different from other theme parks. It's not just one big thing. It's 10,000 small things, each carefully considered, each contributing to the overall experience, including a color specifically designed to disappear. Fact number 3, the fake flags protocol. Walk down Main Street, USA, at the Magic Kingdom, and you'll see American flags. They're everywhere, flying from the buildings, displayed in shop windows, part of the turn-of-the-century Americana aesthetic that defines the area. They look patriotic. They look authentic. They look like real American flags. But look closer. Count the stars. Count the stripes. Something's not quite right. Most of those flags are fake. Not in the sense that they're not actual physical flags. They're real fabric, real flagpoles, real flags. But they're not legally American flags. They're missing a star. Or they have the wrong number of stripes. They're deliberately incorrect. And this isn't an accident. It's not a manufacturing error. It's completely intentional. Disney makes these flags wrong on purpose. Why? Because the United States flag code is very specific about how you must treat the American flag. If you display an official US flag, you have to follow rules. The flag must be illuminated if displayed at night. It must be raised briskly and lowered ceremoniously. It must be taken down during bad weather unless it's an all-weather flag. It must never touch the ground. It should be flown at half-mast on certain days of remembrance. It must be disposed of respectfully, traditionally by burning, when it becomes too worn or faded. These are serious protocols. For government buildings, military installations, official displays, they make sense. But for a theme park that's open from early morning until late at night, that operates in Florida, weather which includes frequent thunderstorms, that has hundreds of flags throughout the property, following flag code for every single one would be logistically nightmarish. Imagine having to lower and raise dozens of flags throughout the Magic Kingdom every single day. Imagine having to illuminate each one at night. Imagine monitoring weather conditions and rushing to take down flags every time a storm approaches. Imagine the staffing required, the procedures needed, the complexity of ensuring compliance across the entire park. So Disney found a loophole. If it's not technically an official US flag, the flag code doesn't apply. And the code is specific about what constitutes an official flag. It must have 50 stars representing the 50 states. It must have 13 stripes representing the original colonies. If a flag has 49 stars, or 14 stripes, or some other variation, it's not legally a US flag. It's a decorative item that resembles a flag. Therefore, Disney can display these flag-like items without worrying about protocol. They can leave them up in the rain. They can leave them up at night without illumination. They don't have to raise and lower them daily with ceremony. They don't have to fly them at half-mast on Memorial Days. They can treat them like any other decorative element of the park. There are exceptions. The flags in Town Square at the Magic Kingdom, the ones at the entrance, those are real. They have 50 stars and 13 stripes. They're official US flags, and Disney treats them accordingly. They have a flag retreat ceremony every evening, where they properly lower the flag with appropriate respect. Cast members are trained in proper flag handling for these official displays. Disney does respect the flag code where it matters, where guests would expect formal protocol. But throughout the rest of Main Street, in the background, on the buildings, those are the fake flags. 49 stars instead of 50. 12 stripes instead of 13. Close enough that you wouldn't notice unless you counted. Similar enough that they convey patriotism and Americana. Different enough that they're not subject to flag code regulations. This is classic Disney problem solving. They want the aesthetic. They want the patriotic, nostalgic feeling of flags lining Main Street, USA. But they don't want the operational burden of maintaining dozens of official flags. So they find a clever workaround. They create flags that look right, but are technically not flags. They get the visual effect they want without the logistical nightmare they don't want. It's also a reminder that almost nothing at Disney is accidental. Those flags look authentic. They're supposed to look authentic. But someone somewhere made a decision. Someone counted the stars and said, "Make it 49. Someone altered the stripe count. Someone wrote this into the specifications. Someone trained the fabrication team to produce these intentionally incorrect flags. And most guests never notice. They see flags, they feel the patriotic atmosphere, they enjoy the Main Street experience, and they never think twice about whether those flags are regulation compliant. That's exactly what Disney wants. The feeling without the complication. The image without the obligation. The magic without the mechanism. 49 stars instead of 50. A tiny detail. An invisible choice. Another secret hidden in plain sight. Fact number 4. Mosquito-free zone science. Florida is famous for many things. Beautiful weather, sandy beaches, theme parks, orange groves. But it's also infamous for something less pleasant, mosquitoes. Central Florida, with its heat, humidity, and abundant water, is mosquito paradise. In the summer months, step outside at dusk almost anywhere in Florida, and you'll be swarmed within minutes. The mosquitoes are relentless, aggressive, and numerous. They're one of the most common complaints from Florida residents and tourists alike. And yet, when you visit Walt Disney World, you rarely see a mosquito. You can spend an entire evening at Magic Kingdom, walking around in shorts and a t-shirt, and never get bitten. You can sit outside at a restaurant as the sun sets, and not need to swat insects away from your food. Children can play in outdoor areas without being covered in itchy red welts. It seems impossible. You're in Central Florida. You're surrounded by lakes and ponds. You're in the exact environment where mosquitoes should thrive. But they're not there. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is the result of one of Disney's most impressive and least known operations, mosquito control. Disney takes mosquito management so seriously that they employ a full team of specialists dedicated entirely to this problem. They use multiple strategies, multiple technologies, all working together to create what is essentially a mosquito-free zone in the middle of mosquito country. Let's start with the most fundamental approach: eliminate breeding grounds. Mosquitoes need standing water to reproduce. The females lay their eggs in water, the eggs hatch into larvae, the larvae develop into pupae, and eventually, adult mosquitoes emerge. The entire cycle depends on water. No standing water means no breeding. No breeding means no mosquitoes. So Disney designed their parks to have zero standing water. Every water feature is moving. Every pond has circulation. Every fountain is constantly flowing. The landscaping is engineered so water drains away quickly. There are no puddles that last more than a day or two. Gutters are cleared religiously. Drainage systems are monitored and maintained constantly. Any container that could collect rainwater is removed or filled. This level of water management requires constant vigilance and incredible attention to detail, but Disney maintains it across their entire property. But elimination of breeding sites isn't enough, because mosquitoes can fly. They can come from outside Disney property. They can travel from neighboring areas. So Disney has additional defensive measures. One of the most interesting is something called the Smellitzer system. These are devices, installed throughout the parks, that spray a fine mist into the air. But it's not insecticide. It's liquid garlic. Mosquitoes, like many insects, are repelled by garlic. The compounds in garlic interfere with their ability to sense carbon dioxide and other markers they use to find hosts. When garlic essence is present in the air, mosquitoes become confused. They can't navigate properly. They avoid the area. And here's the clever part. The concentration used is strong enough to affect mosquitoes, but subtle enough that humans can't smell it. You walk through a cloud of garlic spray and never know it. Your nose doesn't detect it. But to a mosquito, it's overwhelming. The smelletsers operate on timers. They spray automatically at optimal times, particularly at dusk when mosquitoes are most active. They're strategically placed throughout the parks and resorts. The coverage is comprehensive. And because the system is automated, it runs constantly without requiring staff intervention. It's always working, always protecting, always maintaining that invisible barrier against mosquitoes. Disney also uses traditional mosquito control methods when necessary. They have traps that capture mosquitoes for monitoring and population control. They work with local mosquito control districts. During particularly bad seasons, they may use targeted insecticide applications in specific areas, though they prefer to avoid this when possible because of concerns about beneficial insects and environmental impact. The result of all these efforts is remarkable. You can spend a week at Disney World in the summer and never see a mosquito. You can enjoy outdoor attractions, eat at outdoor restaurants, watch evening fireworks shows, all without insect repellent, all without discomfort. It's such a seamless experience that most guests don't even think about it. They don't marvel at the absence of mosquitoes because the absence is so complete that mosquitoes never cross their minds. But if you've been to other parts of Florida, if you've experienced a typical Florida evening, you understand how extraordinary this is. Disney has created a bubble, a protected zone where one of Florida's most persistent problems simply doesn't exist. They've used engineering, biology, chemistry, and constant vigilance to defeat an enemy that has plagued humans for millennia. And they did it so thoroughly, so invisibly, that their victory is almost never noticed. That's peak Disney. Solving problems so completely that guests don't realize there was ever a problem to solve. Creating comfort so seamless that it feels like the natural state of things. Making magic that works specifically because you never see the work behind it. No mosquitoes in mosquito country. Science disguised as sorcery. Fact number 5. The trash vacuum system. Let's talk about garbage. Not the most magical topic, certainly. But bear with me, because the way Disney handles trash is actually fascinating. Think about it for a moment. Magic Kingdom receives tens of thousands of guests every single day. Each guest generates trash. Food wrappers, beverage cups, napkins, bags, all the detritus of a day at a theme park. Multiply that by 50,000 or more guests on a busy day. That's an enormous amount of garbage. Traditionally, theme parks handle this with garbage trucks. Trash cans fill up. Workers empty them into larger bins. Trucks come periodically to collect the bins and transport the trash to a disposal facility. It's efficient enough, but it has problems. Trucks are noisy. They're ugly. They smell. They take up space on roads and backstage areas. They break the immersion. Imagine watching the parade and having a garbage truck rumble past. Not very magical. Disney, characteristically, refused to accept this. They wanted a better solution. So when they designed Walt Disney World, they installed something revolutionary, an automated vacuum-assisted collection system, or AVAC. This system was designed by a Swedish company and had primarily been used in hospitals and large facilities in Europe. Disney adapted it for theme park use and built it into the Magic Kingdom from the beginning. Here's how it works. Throughout the park, there are what appear to be ordinary trash receptacles. Guests throw their garbage in just like any trash can. But these aren't normal trash cans. They're actually collection points connected to a massive pneumatic tube network running through the utilidors below. When a cast member empties a trash can, they don't take the bag to a dumpster. They take it to one of these collection points and deposit it into what looks like a door or chute. Behind that door is a tube. A large tube, about 20 inches in diameter. This tube is part of a network that spans the entire Magic Kingdom, connecting all the collection points. And several times throughout the day, on a programmed schedule, the system activates. Massive turbines at a central collection facility, located near the contemporary resort, create an enormous vacuum. Air rushes through the tube network, and the garbage, sitting in these collection points throughout the park, gets sucked through the tubes. The trash travels at approximately 60 miles per hour through this pneumatic system. It races through the underground tubes, propelled by air pressure differential, and arrives at the central facility. There, it's separated, compacted, and prepared for final disposal. The entire journey from trash can in the park to central facility takes just minutes. No trucks, no visible transport, no noise or smell in guest areas. The trash simply vanishes into the system and disappears. The engineering required for this is substantial. The tube network has to be precisely designed. The curves can't be too sharp or trash will jam. The diameter has to be large enough to accommodate the volume. The vacuum has to be powerful enough to move material through miles of tubing, but controlled enough not to damage the system. The turbines at the central facility are enormous, industrial-grade equipment that generates the suction needed. And maintenance is critical. If a tube gets clogged, the entire zone it serves stops working. So Disney has protocols for what can and cannot go into the system. Cast members are trained on this. Certain items, particularly large or heavy objects, have to be disposed of separately. The system is designed for typical theme park trash, food waste, paper products, small plastic items. Anything unusual is handled differently. The benefits are enormous. First, efficiency. The trash moves fast and automatically. No waiting for trucks. No scheduling pickups. The system runs continuously. Second, cleanliness. The trash is contained in tubes. It's not sitting in dumpsters attracting pests. It's not creating odors. It's isolated from the environment. Third, immersion. Guests never see garbage trucks. They never see large-scale waste handling. The magic stays intact. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, space. In a traditional system, you need areas for dumpsters. You need roads for trucks to access them. You need turning radius and loading zones. All of that takes up valuable space that could be used for attractions or guest areas. The AVAC system requires only the tubes, which run through the utilidors and take up minimal space. The central facility is located outside the park proper, where space is less precious. The system cost millions to install. It requires ongoing maintenance and occasional repairs. The turbines consume significant amounts of electricity, but Disney considered it worthwhile. They value cleanliness, efficiency, and show quality enough to justify the expense. And guests benefit every day without knowing it. The trash they throw away in the morning is whisked away underground at 60 miles per hour, sorted and processed miles away, all while they continue enjoying their day without ever seeing, hearing, or smelling any part of the waste management process. It's infrastructure as art, taking something as mundane as garbage collection and turning it into an elegant, invisible system, solving a practical problem with sophisticated technology, making the necessary disappear so the magical can shine. That's the Disney way. Even trash gets the deluxe treatment. Fact number 6. Smellitzers for subconscious sales. We've already talked about the Smellitzer system in the context of mosquito control, but Disney uses similar technology for something else entirely. Something more subtle. Something that operates on your subconscious mind without you realizing it's happening. They pump artificial scents into the air throughout the parks. And they do it strategically, deliberately, to influence how you feel and what you do. Smell is the most powerful sense for triggering memory and emotion. It's a scientific fact. The olfactory bulb, which processes smell, has direct connections to the amygdala and hippocampus, the brain regions responsible for emotion and memory. No other sense has such direct neural pathways. This is why a particular scent can instantly transport you back to a specific moment in your childhood. Why the smell of cookies baking might remind you of your grandmother's house. Why a certain perfume can trigger memories of a person you haven't thought about in years. Disney knows this. They've studied it extensively, and they've weaponized it in the nicest possible way. Throughout their parks, they have scent delivery systems. These aren't the garlic-spraying mosquito smellitzers. These are different devices designed to disperse pleasant, artificial scents into the air in specific locations. And the scents are chosen very carefully for specific psychological effects. Walk down Main Street, USA in the morning. You'll smell fresh-baked cookies. Maybe vanilla. Maybe popcorn. These scents are being pumped out of ventilation systems hidden in the buildings. They're not coming from actual cookies baking, though there are bakeries on Main Street that contribute some real food smells. But the predominant scents are artificial, carefully formulated, dispersed at optimal concentrations to trigger hunger and nostalgia without being overwhelming. Why? Because hungry people buy more food, and nostalgic people feel happy, comfortable, willing to spend money. Disney wants you to associate Main Street with those warm, comforting feelings of home and childhood. They want you to think about snacks. They want you to feel like it's a special treat day. So they fill the air with smells that trigger those associations. And it works. Studies show that pleasant ambient scents increase dwell time and purchase likelihood. People stay longer in areas that smell good. They buy more. They remember the experience more fondly. The Pirates of the Caribbean attraction provides another example. In the queue, as you wind through the fortress waiting to board your boat, you'll smell the ocean. Salt air, maybe a hint of gunpowder. These scents are artificial, pumped into the air to enhance the immersion. You're supposed to feel like you're in a coastal fort, preparing to sail with pirates. The smell reinforces the theme. It makes the experience more memorable, more real. On Soarin' Around the World, the hang-gliding simulator attraction at Epcot, scents are synchronized with the film. When you fly over orange groves, you smell citrus. When you soar above the ocean, you smell sea air. When you pass flowers, you smell floral notes. These scents are released at specific moments, timed to the visuals. They add an extra dimension to the ride. They make it more immersive. They engage a sense that most attractions ignore. The Haunted Mansion has its own distinctive smell. It's supposed to be musty, old, slightly unpleasant, but not offensive. They want you to feel like you're in an old mansion, so they create that scent artificially. In some resort hotels, particularly the Grand Floridian, they pump in a signature scent. Something fresh, slightly floral, luxurious. They want you to associate that smell with the resort. They want you to remember it fondly. Some guests love it so much that Disney actually sells candles and sprays with the Grand Floridian scent, so people can take it home. This is all intentional, all controlled. Disney has sent designers on staff, people whose job is to develop and implement these artificial smells. They test different formulations. They measure guest responses. They refine the concentrations and delivery systems. It's a whole branch of Imagineering dedicated to something most guests never consciously notice. And that's the point. These scents work on a subconscious level. You don't think, oh, they're pumping cookie smell to make me hungry. You just think, I'm hungry. I'd like a cookie. You don't analyze the nostalgia you feel walking down Main Street. You just feel happy, comfortable, like you're somewhere special. You don't question why Pirates of the Caribbean feels so immersive. You just accept that it does. Disney is manipulating your emotions through your nose. They're triggering hunger, nostalgia, excitement, comfort, all through carefully chosen scents delivered at strategic locations. It's manipulation, certainly, but it's gentle manipulation in service of a goal you've chosen, having a magical experience. You came to Disney to feel wonder and joy. They're using every tool available, including smell, to deliver that experience. And it works. The scents contribute to Disney parks feeling different from other theme parks. They contribute to memories being stronger and more positive. They contribute to that ineffable quality people describe as Disney magic. Part of that magic, it turns out, is artificial vanilla wafting through the air. Industrial-grade nostalgia, pumped through hidden vents, calibrated to trigger the exact emotional response Disney wants you to have. Invisible, powerful, operating constantly on your subconscious mind, making magic through chemistry, one pleasant scent at a time. Fact number 7. The the secret basketball court. Inside the Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland, high above the twisting roller coaster tracks, above the Yetis and the icy caverns and the screaming guests, there's something completely unexpected. Something that has nothing to do with Swiss mountains or alpine adventures. There's a basketball court. Not a full court, a half court, but a legitimate basketball hoop, a small playing area, and enough space for cast members to shoot around during their breaks. This sounds like an urban legend. It sounds like the kind of story someone made up because it's too bizarre to be true. A basketball court inside a fake mountain inside a theme park? Come on. But it's real. It exists. And there's actually a perfectly logical reason for it, even if the result is delightfully absurd. When Disneyland built the Matterhorn in 1959, it was the first tubular steel roller coaster ever constructed. It was a massive engineering undertaking. The mountain itself is about 150 feet tall, built around a complex steel framework that supports both the exterior facade and the roller coaster track inside. And like any large building, it needed to comply with building codes. California building codes at the time specified that any structure above a certain size needed to meet certain requirements. One of those requirements was about usable space. If you're building something this large, you need to have a certain amount of functional area. You can't just have a hollow shell. So Disney needed to create designated spaces within the mountain that qualified as usable areas. But what do you do with this space? The roller coaster takes up most of the mountain's interior. The mechanical systems, the infrastructure, the support structure, all of that fills a lot of volume. But there are some areas, particularly near the top, that are essentially just empty space needed for structural reasons. So someone, and history doesn't record exactly who, decided to turn one of these spaces into a basketball court. It made a certain amount of sense. Cast members working the Matterhorn needed break areas. Climbing down from the mountain, going to a separate break room, and climbing back up wastes a lot of time. Why not create a break space inside the mountain? And if you're going to have a break space, why not make it fun? Add a basketball hoop. Let people shoot around. It's better than just a room with some chairs. So they did. They installed a basketball hoop in this small area high inside the Matterhorn. It's not a regulation court. It's tiny. The ceiling is low. You probably couldn't play a real game. But you can shoot free throws. You can play horse. You can burn off some energy during a break rather than just sitting around. For cast members working long shifts operating a roller coaster, it's a small perk. A weird perk, but a perk nonetheless. Over the years, this basketball court has become legendary. It's one of those Disney secrets that gets passed around among fans. Most guests have no idea it exists. They ride the Matterhorn and never imagine that above them, inside the mountain, someone might be shooting baskets. It's so incongruous, so unexpected, that it captures people's imagination. There are rumors of similar spaces in other Disney mountains. Some cast members swear there are break areas inside Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom, or inside Space Mountain, though these are harder to confirm. Disney is understandably secretive about backstage areas. They don't give tours of these spaces. They don't publicize them. The magic depends on maintaining the illusion, and knowing there's a basketball court inside the Matterhorn somewhat breaks that illusion. But for those in the know, it's a delightful detail. It humanizes Disney in a way. It reminds us that cast members are real people who need breaks and entertainment. It shows that Disney, for all their obsession with theming and immersion, also has a practical side. They needed to meet building codes and provide employee amenities, so they installed a basketball hoop. Why not? There's also something wonderfully absurd about it. Imagine being a cast member. You're working in Fantasyland, operating a roller coaster themed to a Swiss mountain. You take your break. You climb up inside the mountain, past the roller coaster tracks, past the Yeti animatronics, and you arrive at a small room where you can shoot baskets. It's surreal. It's like something from a dream. The juxtaposition of the themed exterior and the mundane interior activity creates this strange cognitive dissonance. And yet it works. It's functional. It's there. High above the crowds, inside a fake mountain, Cast members can play basketball. It's hidden perfectly. Guests will never see it. But it exists. A secret space in a secret mountain. A reminder that Disney parks are not just stages for guests, but workplaces for thousands of people. And sometimes those workplaces have basketball courts. Because why shouldn't they? Even in the most magical place on Earth, people need to unwind. And sometimes, unwinding means shooting hoops inside a mountain while a roller coaster rumbles past below you. Fact number 8. The impossible to book suite. Inside Cinderella Castle at the Magic Kingdom, there's a hotel suite. A real, functional, luxurious hotel room. It has a bedroom with a custom-designed bed. It has a bathroom with a marble tub and intricate tile work. It has a living area with ornate furniture. It has stained glass windows depicting Cinderella's story. It has a fireplace, though it's decorative and non-functional. It has modern amenities like television and climate control, but they're hidden behind themed facades. It's beautiful. It's magical. It's 5-star luxury with Disney theming. And you can't book it. Not with money, anyway. You could be a billionaire. You could offer Disney any amount of money. $10,000 a night. $100,000. It doesn't matter. The Cinderella Castle Suite is not available for purchase. It's not on any booking system. There's no price list. There's no reservation process. It is fundamentally, completely, unequivocally not for sale. So how do you stay there? That's the question everyone asks. And the answer is, you probably don't. Disney controls access completely. They use the suite primarily for promotional purposes and special occasions. Sometimes they'll host celebrities there. Sometimes they'll run a sweepstakes where winners get to spend a night. Sometimes they'll use it for special events or VIP experiences. But it's entirely at Disney's discretion. You can't lobby for it. You can't network your way in. You either get invited or you don't. The suite wasn't originally designed as a hotel room at all. When Magic Kingdom was built, the upper floors of Cinderella Castle were intended to be functional space. Some of it was offices. Some was storage. Walt Disney had wanted a private apartment in Disneyland's castle, but he died before that could be completed. In Florida, they didn't build an apartment into the castle initially. It was just utilitarian space. But in 2006, as part of the Year of a Million Dreams promotion, Disney decided to convert part of the castle into a luxury suite. They wanted to create something extraordinary, something that would generate publicity and excitement, something that embodied Disney magic in its most concentrated form. So they spent months designing and constructing this suite inside the castle. The design is exquisite. Every detail is intentional. The headboard on the bed is inlaid with fiber optics that twinkle like stars. The bathroom fixtures are plated in gold. The stained glass windows are backlit to glow beautifully. The furniture is custom-made, designed to look like it belongs in a royal castle while still being comfortable. The clock on the wall is perpetually set to midnight, a reference to Cinderella's story. There are hidden Mickeys throughout. It's Disney Imagineering operating at full capacity on a tiny scale. Originally, during the Year of a Million Dreams, families were occasionally chosen at random in the park and surprised with a night in the suite. Imagine being selected. You're walking down Main Street, and cast members approach you. They tell you you've been chosen for something special. You're going to spend the night in Cinderella Castle. Your luggage would be retrieved from your hotel. You'd be given a private tour. You'd have dinner in the castle. You'd spend the night in this incredible suite. And in the morning, you'd wake up in Cinderella Castle with the park spread out below you. These surprise selections ended eventually. The logistics were complicated, and not everyone chosen could easily accept. Now, the suite is used more selectively. Disney will still run occasional contests. They'll offer it as a prize for special promotions. But it's rare. Most years, the suite sits empty more often than it's occupied. Disney seems content with this. They value the exclusivity. They value the mystique. If anyone could stay there, even for a huge price, it would lose something. There's debate among Disney fans about whether Disney should open the suite for bookings. Some argue that wealthy fans would gladly pay enormous sums, and Disney is leaving money on the table. Others counter that the exclusivity is the point, that making it available for purchase would diminish it, that some things should remain beyond reach, should remain magical precisely because they're unattainable. Disney has clearly chosen the second philosophy. The Cinderella Castle suite exists as aspiration, as dream, as symbol. It represents the ultimate Disney experience. The thing everyone wishes they could do, but almost no one can. And perhaps that's more valuable to Disney than any amount of nightly revenue. It generates press coverage. It appears in articles and videos. It's discussed on forums. It remains this tantalizing possibility. This secret space inside the most iconic structure in all of Disney World. A hotel room that's not a hotel room. A space you can't rent. A dream you probably won't live. But you'll think about it. You'll look at the castle and wonder. You'll imagine what it would be like. And that imagination, that longing, that's magic too. The magic of the impossible. The allure of the unattainable. A room in a castle in a fantasy kingdom, perpetually out of reach. Fact number 9. Club 33's secret doors. There's a door on Royal Street in Disneyland's New Orleans Square. It's green. It's ornate. It has the number 33 on it, worked into the decorative iron. Most guests walk right past it without noticing. Those who do notice might assume it's a maintenance entrance or a private office. It's neither. It's the entrance to Club 33, one of the most exclusive private clubs in the world. A place where membership costs tens of thousands of dollars, where the waiting list stretches for years, where Disney's wealthiest and most connected fans gather behind closed doors. Club 33 was Walt Disney's idea. He wanted a place where he could entertain corporate sponsors and VIP guests privately. Somewhere elegant, away from the crowds, where business could be conducted and relationships nurtured. He envisioned it as a private club, like the exclusive social clubs that existed in major cities. A place with fine dining, full bar service, and an atmosphere of sophistication. Construction began in the 1960s, but Walt died before it opened. The club launched in 1967, named Club 33 after its address on Royal Street. The original Club 33 at Disneyland is hidden above the Pirates of the Caribbean exit. You enter through that green door, which is unlocked only for members and their guests. Inside is a small lobby with an antique elevator. The elevator takes you upstairs to the club proper. And when those doors open, you're in a different world. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, elegant furniture, fine art on the walls. A bar, which is notable because Disneyland otherwise doesn't serve alcohol. Windows overlooking New Orleans Square. It's luxurious. It's quiet. It's completely unlike the park outside. Members pay initiation fees that have reportedly reached $25,000 to $50,000, though Disney doesn't publicly disclose pricing. Annual dues are thousands more. For this, you get access to the club, the ability to bring guests, and certain perks like priority reservations and special event access. But mostly, you're paying for exclusivity, for the ability to escape the crowds, for the prestige of being a Club 33 member. The waiting list became legendary. At various times, it's been reported as 5 years long, 10 years long, even longer. Disney would add names to the list, but openings came slowly. Members who joined in the 1970s maintained their memberships for decades. Spots rarely opened up. The exclusivity became part of the allure. It wasn't just expensive. It was impossible to get into. You couldn't just have money. You needed patience. You needed luck. You needed to be willing to wait years for the opportunity to pay tens of thousands of dollars to join. Over time, Disney expanded the concept. They created Club 33 locations in other parks. Disney World's Magic Kingdom got one, hidden behind an inconspicuous door on Main Street. Disneyland's California Adventure has one. Tokyo Disneyland has one. Each location is different, themed to its environment, but all share the same core concept. Exclusive, members-only luxury within the park. The clubs are designed to be invisible to regular guests. The doors don't advertise what's behind them. There are no signs saying, Club 33 this way. Cast members are trained not to discuss it. It exists in a parallel dimension, overlapping the park but separate from it. Thousands of guests walk past Club 33 entrances every day and never know they're there. Inside, members dine on fine cuisine prepared by dedicated chefs. They drink premium alcohol in parks that otherwise don't serve it. They relax in air-conditioned comfort while crowds swelter outside. They use private restrooms. They have access to special viewing areas for parades and fireworks. It's Disney, but elevated. Disney for the 1%. Disney without the lines, the noise, the chaos. Critics call it elitist. They argue that Disney is supposed to be accessible, egalitarian, a place where everyone gets the same magic. Club 33 undermines that. It creates tiers. It acknowledges that some guests are more valuable than others. It literally walls off luxury behind hidden doors that most people can't access. Defenders say that Club 33 doesn't hurt anyone. Regular guests still get the full Disney experience. The club members aren't taking anything away from anyone else. They're just paying for additional amenities. And Disney is a business. Catering to high-value customers makes financial sense. Besides, the mystique of Club 33 adds to Disney's lore. Even if you can't join, knowing it exists is kind of fun. It's another secret. Another layer to Disney's complexity. What's undeniable is that Club 33 represents a side of Disney that doesn't appear in the commercials. The company projects an image of wholesome family fun, accessible to all, where dreams come true. But behind certain doors, if you have enough money and enough patience, there's a different Disney. A quieter Disney. A more exclusive Disney. A Disney where the magic is reserved for those who can afford the membership fee. Hidden in plain sight, behind nondescript doors, in every park, the secret clubs wait. Empty chairs at exclusive tables. Private dining rooms where conversations happen away from the crowds. The ultimate Disney secret. Less about hidden details and more about hidden access. A reminder that even in the most egalitarian-seeming spaces, some doors open only for a select few. Fact number 10. The abandoned ghost parks. Not everything Disney builds lasts forever. Not everything succeeds. And when Disney abandons something, when they walk away and leave it behind, the results are haunting. Literally. Because scattered around Walt Disney World property, hidden from guest view, but still there, still real, are abandoned attractions. Ghost parks. Places that once welcomed visitors, but now sit empty, slowly being reclaimed by the Florida wilderness. The most famous is Discovery Island. It's an actual island in Bay Lake, visible from certain areas of Magic Kingdom and the contemporary resort. Between 1974 and 1999, it operated as a zoological park. Guests would take a boat from the resort to the island, where they could walk elevated paths through lush landscaping and observe exotic birds and animals. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was a nice contrast to the high-energy theme parks. But it was also expensive to operate and maintain. It was logistically challenging. Animals needed constant care. Guests had to be transported by boat, which limited capacity and created scheduling complications. And as Disney's Animal Kingdom opened in 1998, offering a much larger and more comprehensive animal experience, Discovery Island became redundant. So in 1999, Disney closed it. They removed the animals. They sent the staff elsewhere. And then they just left it. They didn't demolish the buildings. They didn't remove the structures. They closed it and walked away. The island is still there. The buildings are still standing. The pathways still exist. But everything is overgrown. Nature has taken over. Vines cover the structures. Trees grow through roofs. Birds nest in the abandoned aviaries. It's like a post-apocalyptic scene. This formerly maintained paradise now returning to jungle. Disney has occasionally used the island for small projects. There were plans at various times to redevelop it, but none came to fruition. Mostly, it just sits there. It's visible. You can see it from shore, but you can't visit. Disney doesn't offer tours. It's technically trespassing to go there. Urban explorers have snuck onto the island over the years, taking photos of the decay. The images are eerie. Empty cages, faded signs, buildings slowly collapsing. a Disney attraction that time forgot. Then there's River Country, Disney's first water park. It opened in 1976 on the shores of Bay Lake, near Fort Wilderness. It was designed to look like an old-fashioned swimming hole, with a rustic theme. Natural rock formations, rope swings, water slides integrated into the landscape. It was charming and popular for years. But River Country used filtered water from Bay Lake, unlike Disney's newer water parks, which use chlorinated pool water. As concerns about waterborne pathogens grew in the 1990s, particularly after the brain-eating amoeba Naegleria fowleri was discovered in some Florida lakes, guests became nervous about swimming in lake water. Attendance declined. Disney's newer water parks, Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach, offered more attractions and didn't have the same concerns. So in 2001, Disney closed River Country temporarily. That temporary closure became permanent. They never reopened it. Like Discovery Island, River Country was abandoned in place. The water slides are still there, though dry and weathered. The pools are empty, slowly filling with rainwater and algae. The buildings are decaying. The landscaping has gone wild. It sits fenced off, posted with no trespassing signs, visible from the Fort Wilderness boat dock, but inaccessible to guests. Another ghost park. Another reminder that not all Disney dreams last forever. These abandoned spaces are strange. Disney is so obsessed with maintaining the magic, with keeping everything perfect and polished, that seeing their failures left to rot is jarring. Why not demolish them? Why not clear the land and build something new? The answer seems to be a combination of factors. Demolition is expensive. The sites have environmental concerns. Disney has so much land that leaving a few acres unused doesn't really hurt them. And perhaps there's a psychological factor too. Admitting failure completely by tearing something down is harder than just closing it and moving on. For Disney fans, these abandoned parks have taken on mythical status. They're forbidden spaces. They represent Disney history, but history you can't access. There are entire online communities dedicated to sharing information about Discovery Island and River Country. People analyze old photos. They speculate about what it's like now. Some even risk trespassing to see for themselves, though Disney takes this seriously and will prosecute. There's something melancholy about these places. They were built with care and hope. People worked there. Families visited and made memories. And then one day it was over. The gates closed. The crowd stopped coming. And nature began the slow work of taking it all back. Disney's abandoned parks aren't tragic exactly. They're just sad. Reminders that nothing is permanent, not even magic. That even Disney, with all their resources and expertise, sometimes builds things that don't last. And when they move on, they leave ghosts behind. Islands in lakes, water parks in forests, slowly decaying, slowly disappearing, still visible but forever out of reach. Fact number 11. Walt's secret apartment. Above the fire station on Main Street, USA at Disneyland, there's a small apartment. It's decorated in the style of the early 1900s, with period furniture, vintage fixtures, and personal touches throughout. The windows overlook Main Street, giving a perfect view of the guests streaming through the park below. And in one of those windows, there's a lamp. It's always on, always lit. Day and night, year after year, decade after decade, that lamp glows in the window. It's been burning since 1966, since the day Walt Disney died. This was Walt's private apartment, his retreat within the park he created. When Disneyland opened in 1955, Walt was deeply involved in its operation. He would spend days at the park, overseeing everything, talking to guests, watching how people interacted with his creation. But he needed a place to rest, to take breaks, to escape the crowds occasionally. So he had this apartment built above the fire station, right at the entrance to Main Street. It wasn't large, just a few rooms, a living area, a small bathroom, a kitchenette. But it was comfortable. It was private. It was his. He would bring guests there sometimes. Business associates, celebrities, friends. He'd watch the fireworks from the window. He'd observe the park below, studying how people moved, what they enjoyed, what could be improved. It was his command post, in a way. his private observation deck overlooking the Magic Kingdom. The apartment was decorated to reflect Walt's personal taste, but also to embody the nostalgic Americana that Main Street represented. Turn-of-the-century style. Warm, homey, comfortable. There are photos of Walt in the apartment, entertaining guests, relaxing with his family. It was genuinely used and genuinely loved. It wasn't just a showpiece. It was functional space that Walt valued. When Walt died in December 1966, the apartment took on new meaning. It became a memorial, a shrine almost. Disney made the decision to preserve it exactly as it was. The furniture stayed. The decorations stayed. Walt's personal items stayed. It became a time capsule of his final year, frozen in place. And in the window, they placed a lamp. And they turned it on. And they never turned it off. The lamp is symbolic. It represents the idea that Walt is still there. That his spirit remains in the park. That even though he's gone, his presence continues. Cast members will tell you that the lamp stays lit because Walt is still home. It's a touching gesture. A way of keeping Walt's memory alive literally, as well as figuratively. As long as that lamp burns, Walt is still in the park. The apartment isn't open to regular guests. You can't tour it. You can't book it. It's preserved as a private space, though Disney does occasionally allow VIPs or special guests to visit. Mostly, it remains closed. But you can see the window from Main Street. You can see the lamp glowing. And if you know the story, it's deeply moving. To look up and see that light, and know that it's been burning for over 50 years, an eternal flame for the man who created this place. There's something profound about this. Disney could have converted the apartment into office space or storage. They could have opened it as a museum exhibit, charging admission, making money from it. But they chose to leave it as it was. To preserve it as Walt's space. To keep the lamp lit. It's a gesture of respect, of remembrance, of honoring the founder. It also represents Disney's relationship with Walt's legacy. The company trades heavily on Walt's image and values. They invoke his name constantly. What would Walt do? Is a question that still gets asked in Disney decision-making. Walt has become almost mythological within the company. Larger than life, the visionary founder whose dreams built an empire. The apartment and the lamp in the window are physical manifestations of that mythology. But there's genuine sentiment there too. People who worked with Walt, who knew him, are mostly gone now. But the stories persist. The apartment preserves something tangible. You can point to that window and say, that was Walt's. He stood there. He looked out at this view. It connects the present to the past in a way that's rare and valuable. For guests who know the story, seeing the lamp is a moment of connection with Disney history. It's a reminder that Disneyland wasn't built by a corporation. It was built by a man. A specific man with dreams and vision and flaws and genius. And his apartment is still there, above the fire station, with a lamp in the window. Always lit. Always welcoming. Always suggesting that somehow, in some way, Walt never really left. He's still there, watching over his park, making sure the magic continues. The lamp burns as proof. As promise. As memorial. A small light in a window, carrying enormous symbolic weight, connecting millions of guests to the man who started it all. Fact number 12, the Disney point. Here's something you've probably never consciously noticed, but once you know about it, you'll see it everywhere at Disney parks. Watch a cast member give directions. Watch them indicate where something is located. They never point with one finger. Never. They either use two fingers together, held in a sort of peace sign position, or they gesture with an open palm, all fingers extended. This is called the Disney point, and it's mandatory training for every cast member. Why? The answer is cultural sensitivity. In some cultures, pointing with a single index finger is considered rude. It's seen as aggressive or disrespectful. In many Asian cultures, for instance, pointing directly at someone or something with one finger can be offensive. It's accusatory. It's impolite. And Disney is an international company serving international guests. They don't want any gesture, any action, any behavior from their cast members to inadvertently offend someone. So they developed the Disney point. 2 fingers or open palm. This gesture is considered polite across cultures. It's soft. It's welcoming. It's friendly. It doesn't carry negative connotations in any major culture that Disney serves. It's a small thing, this way of pointing, but it fits into Disney's broader philosophy of making everyone feel welcome and respected. Cast members are trained on this from day one. It's part of Disney traditions, the orientation course every cast member takes before starting work. They practice it. They're corrected if they slip up and point with 1 finger. It becomes habit. Eventually, it becomes automatic. Cast members find themselves using the Disney point in their personal lives, outside the parks. It's that ingrained. And it works. It contributes to the overall feeling of politeness and professionalism that Disney cast members project. It's one of thousands of small details that add up to create the Disney difference. No single detail makes or breaks the experience. But collectively, all these small gestures and trained behaviors create an atmosphere that feels special, feels more courteous, feels more magical than other theme parks. There's also a practical advantage. The 2-finger point, or open palm gesture, is more visible. If you're directing someone to a location, especially in a crowded park, a broad gesture with multiple fingers, or an open hand, is easier to follow than a single pointed finger. It's more communicative. It helps ensure the guest understands where you're indicating. This attention to gesture extends to other areas of cast member training too. They're taught to kneel down when talking to children, to get on the child's eye level. They're taught specific phrases and language. They're taught to smile authentically, not just with their mouth, but with their eyes. They're taught body language that conveys openness and helpfulness. The Disney point is just one element of a comprehensive training program focused on nonverbal communication. Critics sometimes mock this level of detail. They call it corporate control, regimentation, turning employees into robots who all act the same way. And there's some truth to that. Disney absolutely standardizes behavior. They want consistency. They want every guest to receive the same high level of service regardless of which cast member they interact with. But from another perspective, it's about excellence. It's about caring enough to think through every detail of guest interaction. Most companies don't train their employees on how to point. They don't think about it. Disney does. They consider how every gesture might be perceived. They adapt their practices to be as welcoming as possible to as many people as possible. That's the kind of obsessive attention to detail that defines Disney. And for cast members, many appreciate having clear guidelines. They know how they're expected to behave. There's no ambiguity. They don't have to guess whether something is appropriate. Disney has thought it through and provided training. This makes their jobs easier in some ways. They can focus on helping guests rather than worrying about whether they're doing things correctly. The Disney point has become iconic in its own way. Disney fans recognize it. They notice it. It's become part of Disney culture, part of the shared knowledge among people who love the parks. And it serves as a reminder that magic isn't just big showpieces and expensive attractions. Sometimes magic is a cast member who points with 2 fingers instead of 1, making everyone feel respected and welcome, one gesture at a time. Fact number 13, forbidden words. At Disney parks, cast members are trained to never say 3 words. I don't know. These words are forbidden. They're considered unacceptable. No matter what a guest asks, no matter how obscure the question, a cast member is never supposed to respond with, I don't know. It's one of Disney's most stringent communication rules, and violating it can result in coaching or discipline. Why is this rule so strict? Because, I don't know, ends the conversation. It closes the door. It tells the guests that they're on their own, that the cast member can't or won't help them. And Disney's entire business model is built on service, on making guests feel cared for, on solving problems and creating magical experiences. I don't know is the opposite of that. It's giving up. It's admitting defeat. It's leaving the guest unsatisfied. So what are cast members supposed to do when they genuinely don't know the answer to a question? They have options. First, they can say, "That's a great question. Let me find out for you." This acknowledges the question, validates the guest, and commits to finding an answer. Then the cast member either looks it up themselves, using references or calling someone, or they escort the guest to someone who would know. A manager, a coordinator, someone with more information. Second, they can provide what information they do have, and then help the guest find the rest. I'm not certain about that specific detail, but I know the guest relations office over there can definitely help you. Let me walk you over and introduce you. This approach ensures the guest gets taken care of while being honest about the cast member's limitations. Third, they can make an educated guess, but frame it appropriately. I believe it's around 2 p.m., but let me verify that for you so you have accurate information. This shows initiative while acknowledging uncertainty. The key is never leaving the guest hanging, never ending the interaction with an unhelpful answer. This rule applies to everything. Questions about wait times, show schedules, restaurant reservations, park hours, lost items, medical emergencies, whatever. The cast member might not know the answer, but they're responsible for finding it or finding someone who can. Disney views this as fundamental customer service. You're not just an employee working your shift. You're a host. The guest is in your home. You take care of them. Training for this is extensive. Cast members practice scenarios. They role-play difficult questions. They learn what resources are available to them. They memorize common information. They learn who to call for specialized questions. Disney provides extensive reference materials, databases, phone numbers, contacts. The company understands that cast members can't possibly know everything, so they provide tools to find information quickly. The broader philosophy here is about ownership and empowerment. Disney wants cast members to take ownership of guest problems, even problems that aren't technically their responsibility. If a guest asks a question, any cast member should help resolve it. Don't pass the guest off to someone else without helping them get to that person. Don't shrug and say, "Not my department." Take ownership. Make it your problem to solve. This creates a better guest experience, obviously. Guests feel cared for. They feel like everyone at Disney is there to help them. It doesn't matter who they ask, they'll get assistance. This perception of universal helpfulness is powerful. It makes the park feel safer, friendlier, more welcoming. It also creates a better work environment for cast members in some ways. When everyone is empowered to help everyone, when no one is siloed into, "That's not my job," the culture becomes more collaborative. Cast members help each other. They share information. They work together to solve problems. The prohibition on, "I don't know," forces this collaboration because no one can just dismiss a guest. They have to find answers, which often means working with colleagues. Of course, there are challenges. Some guests ask impossible questions. Some situations genuinely don't have good answers. Sometimes cast members are overwhelmed and just want to say, "I don't know," and move on. But they can't. They have to persist. They have to find some way to help, or to connect the guest with help. It's demanding. It requires patience, creativity, and commitment. But it works. It's one reason Disney's customer service has such a strong reputation. When you ask a cast member something, you get help. Real help. Not a shrug. Not a dismissal. Actual assistance. And that consistency, that reliability, creates trust. Guests know they can ask anyone for anything, and they'll be taken care of. That's valuable. That's rare. And it starts with 3 forbidden words. I don't know. Fact number 14. The no-death legend. There's a persistent legend about Disney parks, particularly Walt Disney World. The legend says that no one has ever been officially pronounced dead on Disney property. That if someone dies, they're always declared to have died off property, either in the ambulance or at the hospital. That Disney has some arrangement, some protocol, some understanding with local authorities to ensure that no deaths are recorded as occurring at the parks. The reason? To preserve Disney's image as a happy, safe, magical place. A place where death doesn't exist. This legend is widely believed. It's repeated constantly in Disney secrets, articles, and videos. People accept it as fact. And like many legends, it contains a kernel of truth, But the full story is more complicated and less sinister than the legend suggests. Here's the reality. People have died at Disney parks. It happens. With millions of guests over decades, statistical probability guarantees it. Heart attacks, pre-existing medical conditions, accidents, these things occur. Disney doesn't have the power to prevent deaths from being recorded where they actually occur. They can't rewrite death certificates. They can't dictate to medical examiners where someone is pronounced dead. What is true is that most people who experience medical emergencies at Disney parks are transported to hospitals before being pronounced dead. This isn't unique to Disney. It's standard emergency medical practice almost everywhere. Unless someone is obviously deceased, beyond any possibility of resuscitation, paramedics and EMTs don't pronounce death. They provide emergency care and transport the patient to a hospital where a doctor makes that determination. So at Disney, when someone has a medical emergency, park medical staff respond immediately. They provide care on site. They call for ambulance transport if needed. The person is taken to a hospital. And if they die, they're pronounced dead at the hospital, not at the park. But this would happen at any theme park, any shopping mall, any public venue. It's not a Disney-specific conspiracy. It's how emergency medicine works. The reason this legend persists about Disney specifically is because Disney is hyper-protective of their image. They're very careful about what information they release. They don't publicize incidents. They don't hold press conferences about accidents or deaths. They handle things quietly, professionally, with respect for the families involved. This discretion, while appropriate, can seem suspicious. It can look like they're hiding something. There have been notable deaths at Disney parks that are matters of public record. In 1984, a guest died on the Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland after being thrown from the vehicle. In 2016, a child was killed by an alligator at the Grand Floridian Resort at Walt Disney World. In 2003, a guest died after riding Mission Space at Epcot. These deaths were investigated, documented, and reported. Disney didn't have the power to erase them or claim they happened elsewhere. What Disney does do is respond to incidents professionally and quickly. They cooperate with authorities. They secure scenes. They provide documentation. They contact families. They manage communication carefully. And yes, they're motivated by wanting to protect their reputation. But that's not the same as falsifying death records or pressuring medical examiners. The legend probably also persists because it fits our perception of Disney as controlling and image-obsessed. We know Disney cares deeply about their brand. We know they go to extreme lengths to maintain the magic. So the idea that they would manipulate death records to preserve their happiest place on Earth image seems plausible, even if it's not true. There's also a philosophical element to this legend. Disney is supposed to be an escape from reality, a place where normal rules don't apply, where you leave your troubles behind. The idea that death is somehow banished from Disney property fits that narrative. It suggests that Disney's magic is so powerful that even mortality can't intrude. It's a comforting fantasy, even if it's nonsense. The truth is more mundane, but also more reassuring. Disney takes safety seriously. They have extensive medical capabilities. They have trained staff, well-equipped first aid stations, and quick access to emergency services. When something goes wrong, they respond professionally. They help. They care for people. And if despite their best efforts someone dies, they handle it with dignity and respect, coordinating with authorities and families. So the no-death legend is false, but it reveals something true about Disney's image and our relationship to it. We want to believe that Disney is different, that normal rules don't apply there, that it's truly a place apart from the real world. And Disney encourages that belief in many ways. But they can't and don't control something as fundamental as when and where death is officially recorded. They're a theme park company, not a sovereign nation. The magic has limits. Death, unfortunately, is one of them. Fact number 15. Costume logic. Imagine you're a cast member working in Frontierland. You're dressed in full Western frontier costume. Cowboy boots, period-appropriate clothing, maybe a hat, everything designed to make you look like you belong in the Old West. Your shift is ending, and you need to get to the cast cafeteria, which is accessed through the Utilidors. The most direct route would take you through Tomorrowland on your way. But you can't go that way. It's forbidden. You must use the underground tunnels exclusively. You cannot, under any circumstances, be seen by guests while in costume in the wrong land. This is one of Disney's strictest rules. Cast members must never break the thematic immersion of the parks. Each land has its own identity, its own time period, its own aesthetic. Frontierland is the Old West. Tomorrowland is the future. Fantasyland is fairy tales. Adventureland is exotic tropical exploration. These themes are carefully maintained through architecture, music, landscaping, and yes, cast member costumes. And those costumes must never appear in the wrong context. Why does this matter so much? Because Disney understands that immersion is fragile. Your brain wants to believe the illusion. When you're in Frontierland, you want to feel transported to the Old West. The theming helps. The buildings look right. The music sounds right. The cast members dress appropriately. Everything reinforces the illusion. But if you saw someone in a cowboy costume walking through Tomorrowland's sleek, futuristic environment, the spell would break. Your brain would be yanked out of the fantasy. You'd be reminded that this is all artificial, all staged. The magic would diminish. So Disney prevents this rigorously. Cast members are assigned to specific lands. Their costumes match those lands. And when they need to move around the park for breaks, shift changes, or other business, they use the Utilidors. The tunnel system allows them to travel invisibly, maintaining the illusion above. A cast member can walk from Frontierland to Fantasyland Underground without ever being seen by guests in Tomorrowland or Liberty Square. This rule extends to characters too. Mickey Mouse doesn't walk from Fantasyland to Main Street through Tomorrowland. He goes through the tunnels. Character performers are especially protected. Disney maintains the fiction that there's only one Mickey, one Goofy, one Cinderella. You can't have two Mickeys visible at the same time in different parts of the park. That would shatter the illusion. So characters move through backstage areas and tunnels, appearing and disappearing magically from the guest perspective. The training for this is thorough. New cast members learn about their boundaries immediately. They learn which areas they can access in costume, and which are forbidden. They learn the tunnel routes. They're taught to be hyper-aware of their surroundings. If you're in costume, and you somehow end up in the wrong place, you hide. You get out of sight. You don't let guests see you. Violations are taken seriously. If a cast member is spotted in costume in the wrong land, it's a disciplinary issue. Disney doesn't want this to happen. Ever. The stakes are high because the immersion is everything. Disney's entire value proposition is creating believable fantasy environments. Breaking that immersion, even once, even briefly, undermines the experience. This is more complex at Magic Kingdom than at other Disney parks because Magic Kingdom has such distinct themed lands packed close together. At Epcot, with its more open layout, or at Animal Kingdom, with its different structure, the costume rules are adapted to the park's design. But the principle remains. Cast members must fit their environment. They must belong where they are. They must never be visual contradictions. There's something admirable about this level of commitment. Disney could take the easy route. Let cast members walk wherever. Let efficiency trump theming. But they don't. They built an entire tunnel system partly to solve this problem. They train thousands of employees on these rules. They enforce them consistently, all to maintain an illusion, all to keep the magic intact. From a guest perspective, this creates subtle but powerful effects. You never see anything out of place. Every cast member you see looks like they belong exactly where they are. The lands feel authentic, consistent, whole. You might not consciously notice this, but your brain does. It registers the coherence. It rewards Disney with deeper immersion, stronger emotional connection, better memories. And for cast members, while it creates some inconvenience, many appreciate it. They take pride in the show. They understand they're not just employees, but performers. Their costume is their character. Being part of maintaining Disney's standards of quality and immersion is meaningful to many of them. They're contributing to something bigger than themselves. They're keeping the magic alive. So that cowboy in Frontierland won't walk through Tomorrowland. He'll head underground, navigate the color-coded corridors of the Utilidors, and emerge where he needs to be without ever breaking character or disrupting the themed experience above. It's invisible to guests. It's operationally complex, but it's absolutely essential to how Disney creates magic. One rule, enforced thousands of times daily, ensuring that every land stays perfectly itself. Fact number 16. Forced perspective architecture. Look at Cinderella Castle. It's enormous, isn't it? It towers over Magic Kingdom, visible from almost everywhere in the park. It must be, 200 feet tall? 300? It dominates the skyline. It's the centerpiece of the entire park. Except it's not as tall as you think it is. Cinderella Castle is 189 feet tall. That's tall, certainly, but it doesn't feel like 189 feet. It feels much taller, and that's completely intentional. Disney built the castle to look bigger than it actually is using a technique called forced perspective. Forced perspective is an architectural trick that manipulates scale to fool your eye. The basic principle is simple. Make things smaller as they go higher, and your brain will perceive them as farther away and therefore taller than they really are. Disney uses this throughout their parks, but nowhere more dramatically than on Cinderella Castle. Look at the castle carefully, if you can look past the overall impression of grandeur. Notice the bricks. At the base of the castle, the bricks are normal size, standard masonry, but as you look higher, the bricks get progressively smaller. By the time you reach the top of the castle, the bricks are much smaller than the ones at the bottom. Your brain interprets this size reduction as distance. Small bricks must be far away. Far away means tall. Therefore, the castle must be very tall. The same technique applies to the windows, the stones, the decorative elements. Everything scales down as you go up. The proportions are carefully calculated. Too much scaling, and it looks obviously fake. Too little, and the effect doesn't work. Disney's Imagineers found the sweet spot. The castle looks natural, but impossibly grand. Your eye accepts the illusion without questioning it. This technique is used throughout Main Street, USA as well. The buildings on Main Street appear to be 3 or 4 stories tall. But they're not. Most are actually only 1 or 2 stories. The ground floor is built at roughly 90% of normal scale. The second floor, if there is one, is built at 80% scale. The top decorative floor might be at 60% scale. So the windows get smaller, the details shrink, and your brain perceives height that doesn't really exist. Why do this? Why not just build taller buildings? Several reasons. First, it saves money. Less material, less structure, less cost. Second, it's actually more effective at creating the desired emotional impact. A building that's 2 stories tall, but designed with forced perspective, can feel grander than an actual 3-story building. The illusion is more powerful than reality. Third, it helps with sightlines and scale. Disney wants the parks to feel grand, but not overwhelming. 2 tall buildings would dominate and oppress. Forced perspective creates the impression of grandeur while maintaining comfortable proportions. There's also a practical limit related to aviation. In Florida, any structure over 200 feet tall requires aircraft warning lights, usually red blinking lights on top. Disney doesn't want those lights on Cinderella Castle. They would destroy the aesthetic. They would be a constant reminder of the modern world, of regulations, of reality. So Disney keeps the castle under 200 feet. And they use forced perspective to make it feel taller than it is, without needing the extra actual height that would trigger lighting requirements. The technique creates interesting side effects. If you could somehow stand at the top of Cinderella Castle and examine those tiny bricks up close, they'd look absurdly small. They wouldn't look right. But you can't get up there. You always view the castle from ground level, from a distance. From that perspective, the forced perspective works perfectly. The castle looks enormous, majestic, fairy tale perfect. Photographers sometimes struggle with this. When you take a photo of Cinderella Castle, it often looks smaller in the picture than it felt in person. That's because cameras don't process visual information the same way your brain does. Your brain is applying context, using cues from your surroundings, interpreting scale based on your body's size and position. The camera just captures light. It doesn't fall for forced perspective the way human perception does. Disney has used forced perspective so successfully that other theme parks have copied the technique. It's become standard practice in themed entertainment design. But Disney pioneered it, at least in this context. When they built Disneyland in the 1950s, they were inventing these techniques. They were figuring out how to create fantasy environments that felt real and grand within the constraints of budgets and building codes. Forced perspective was one of their solutions, and it works beautifully. Guests feel the grandeur. They take photos with the castle looking enormous in the background. They remember it as towering, magnificent, impossible. They don't realize they've been tricked. The castle is actually quite modest in actual height, but it feels like the home of royalty, the centerpiece of a kingdom, the stuff of fairy tales. Forced perspective makes that possible. Small bricks pretending to be far away. Shrinking windows creating the illusion of height. Architecture lying to your eyes, making magic through mathematics and careful design. Fact number 17. The presidential reuse. Disney is extraordinarily creative. Their Imagineers design amazing attractions, innovative animatronics, immersive environments. But they're also practical. They reuse things. They repurpose. They find efficiencies. And sometimes, this leads to amusing situations, like Roman senators who are secretly American presidents. In Epcot's Spaceship Earth, the ride that takes you through the history of human communication, there are scenes depicting various historical periods. Ancient Egypt, classical Greece and Rome, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution. Each scene has animatronic figures acting out moments in communication history. And some of those figures look familiar. If you're a Disney fan, if you've spent time at the Hall of Presidents, because some of those animatronics in Spaceship Earth are repurposed presidential figures from the Hall of Presidents. The molds, at least. Disney doesn't build entirely new animatronic heads for every figure when they already have molds that can work. So that Roman senator you see in the classical scene, he might be wearing a toga now, but his face was originally designed to be Theodore Roosevelt, or another president. The exact mapping isn't officially documented, but Disney historians and dedicated fans have identified several reused presidential figures throughout Spaceship Earth. This makes perfect sense from a production standpoint. Creating animatronic figures is expensive. Sculpting the face, creating the mold, engineering the mechanics, programming the movements, all of this costs significant money and time. If you already have a mold that can work for a new purpose, why not use it? Teddy Roosevelt, with different clothes and hair, can be a Roman senator. Nobody will recognize him unless they're really paying attention. And most guests don't. The animatronics in Spaceship Earth are viewed briefly, often in dim lighting, in the context of a moving ride vehicle. You're processing the overall scene, not examining individual faces closely. So Disney can get away with this repurposing. The scenes work. The story is told effectively. The fact that some faces are presidential is a fun Easter egg for those who notice, but it doesn't affect the experience for those who don't. This practice extends beyond Spaceship Earth. Disney reuses animatronic components, molds, and even entire figures across different attractions. Sometimes a figure from a closed attraction gets refurbished and appears in a new one. Sometimes body parts are swapped around. It's practical, economical, and usually invisible to guests. Disney is building theatrical productions, after all. Just like a theater company reuses props and costumes across different shows, Disney reuses animatronic components across different attractions. There's something charming about discovering these reuses. It's like finding hidden Mickey symbols. It's a secret layer of Disney knowledge. You can visit Spaceship Earth knowing that you're looking at presidents dressed as historical figures, and it adds an extra dimension to the experience. It makes you smile. It makes you appreciate Disney's resourcefulness. It also reminds us that Disney, for all their massive budgets and incredible creativity, still has to be efficient. They still have financial constraints. They still make practical decisions about where to spend money and where to save it. Reusing animatronic molds is one place they save. And honestly, it doesn't diminish the attractions at all. Spaceship Earth is still wonderful, still educational, still immersive. The fact that some Roman senators were originally American presidents is just a fun bit of trivia. So next time you ride Spaceship Earth, look at those ancient figures. Look at their faces. Try to spot the presidents. See if you can recognize Teddy Roosevelt or Abraham Lincoln underneath the togas and ancient costumes. It's a game, a treasure hunt, a reminder that Disney magic often comes with practical solutions hidden underneath. Presidents become senators. Molds get reused. Budgets get stretched. And somehow, the magic still works. Because what matters isn't whether the face was originally designed for a different purpose. What matters is whether it serves the story being told. And in that, Disney's repurposed presidents perform admirably, playing their new roles in humanity's communication history while keeping their presidential identities secret from most guests. Fact number 18. The 2025 Hall of Presidents Update. The Hall of Presidents at Magic Kingdom is unique among Disney attractions. It's a show featuring audio animatronic figures representing every US president. They all stand on stage together, and the current president gives a speaking role, a brief address about democracy, leadership, and American values. It's patriotic, educational, and when it was created, it was a showcase for Disney's most advanced animatronics. But the Hall of Presidents also presents a unique challenge. Unlike every other Disney attraction, it has to be updated every time there's a new president. Every 4 or 8 years, Disney has to create a new animatronic, record new audio, and update the show. And in recent decades, with American politics becoming increasingly polarized, the Hall of Presidents has become surprisingly controversial. The tradition is clear. The current president gets the speaking role. When a new president is inaugurated, Disney begins work on their animatronic figure. They take measurements, reference photos, work with artists to capture the likeness. They record audio, either with the actual president or with a voice actor if the president declines to participate. And when the new figure is ready, they update the show. The previous president moves into the group, takes a non-speaking position, and the new president takes center stage. This happened again in 2025 when Donald Trump returned to the presidency. The Joe Biden animatronic, which had been in the speaking role since 2021, was moved into the lineup of past presidents. He now stands with the others, silent except for the brief moment when all presidents are presented by name. The new Donald Trump animatronic, Disney's second Trump figure, as he also served from 2017 to 2021, took the central speaking position. Creating a presidential animatronic is a significant undertaking. Disney wants to get the likeness right. They want the movements to be realistic. They want the voice to sound authentic. They work with the actual president when possible to record their speech. President Trump did participate in recording audio for his animatronic, giving a speech about American principles and democratic values. The Hall of Presidents updates always generate discussion. Some guests love the attraction, seeing it as an important tribute to American democracy and history. Others find it uncomfortable, especially in polarized times when presidents are deeply controversial. Some presidents get applause during the show. Others get silence or even scattered boos, which Disney security discourages, but can't completely prevent. Disney has tried to keep the Hall of Presidents apolitical. The speeches are carefully written to be unifying rather than partisan. They focus on shared values, historical principles, and respect for the office rather than specific policies or political positions. But in practice, the mere presence of certain presidents can feel political to some guests. The attraction has become a reflection of our national divisions. There were rumors during various presidential transitions that Disney might close the Hall of Presidents permanently, that the controversy wasn't worth it, that the attraction had become more trouble than it was worth. But Disney has maintained it. They continue updating it with each new president. They seem committed to preserving this unique attraction that exists nowhere else, that connects Disney directly to contemporary American politics in a way no other Disney attraction does. The 2025 update followed the established pattern. Biden moved to the group. Trump took the center stage. A new speech was recorded. The show continues. For Disney, it's part of their tradition, part of their commitment to the Hall of Presidents concept. For guests, it's a reminder that Disney exists in the real world, that politics intrude even into the Magic Kingdom, that not everything Disney creates exists purely in the realm of fantasy and escape. The Hall of Presidents remains a fascinating anomaly in Disney's portfolio. It's the only attraction that must be constantly updated based on events beyond Disney's control. It's the only attraction where real-world politics are explicitly present. It's the only place in Magic Kingdom where current events matter more than timeless fantasy. And every 4 or 8 years, Disney does the work, creates the new figure, updates the show, and maintains this unique tradition. Presidents come and go, taking turns at center stage, while Disney continues presenting them all, past and present, in this unusual celebration of American democracy. Fact number 19. The real bone in Pirates. The Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland is one of the most beloved attractions Disney ever created. It's a gentle boat ride through scenes of pirate life, complete with animatronics, music, and that distinctive musty smell. Near the beginning of the ride, in the dimly lit queue area before you even board your boat, there's a scene. A skeleton lying in a bed. Another skeleton slumped over a treasure chest. More bones scattered around. It's atmospheric. It's spooky. It sets the mood. And for years, those skeletons were real. Actual human bones. This sounds like an urban legend, but it's documented fact. When Disneyland was building Pirates of the Caribbean in the 1960s, they needed skeletons. But the fake skeletons available at the time weren't very good. They looked plastic. They looked fake. They didn't have the right texture or color. They didn't look believably old and weathered. So Disney's Imagineers did something that would be unthinkable today. They obtained real human skeletons. These came from medical suppliers and universities. In the 1960s, real human skeletons were commonly used for medical education and research. When they were no longer needed, they could be sold or donated. Disney acquired several complete or partial skeletons and used them in the attraction. They placed them in key scenes. The skull and crossbones on the headboard, the skeleton in bed, various bones throughout the ride. All real, all human, all from people who had died and whose remains ended up, probably unexpectedly, as props in a theme park ride. Over the years, as animatronics and special effects improved, Disney began replacing the real bones with fake ones. Modern fake skeletons look much better than the ones from the 1960s. They're more detailed, more realistic looking in the right ways, and they don't carry the ethical concerns of using actual human remains as entertainment props. So piece by piece, the real bones were removed and replaced with replicas. Disney has stated that all the real bones have been removed. That Pirates of the Caribbean now uses only fake skeletons. But there's a persistent rumor, unconfirmed, that at least one real bone remains. That somewhere in the ride, Disney either missed one or deliberately left one as a connection to the attraction's history. The most common claim is that the skull on the headboard above the bed is still real, or that one of the skulls in the treasure pile is authentic. Is this true? Disney won't say definitively. Cast members sometimes whisper about it. Some claim to know which bone is real. Others insist it's all fake now. Disney fans debate it endlessly. Some visit the ride specifically to try to identify which bone might be real, looking for subtle differences in color or texture that might distinguish a real human skull from a plastic replica. There's something deeply strange about this. Imagine being one of those people whose skeleton ended up in Pirates of the Caribbean. You donated your body to science, expecting to contribute to medical education. Instead, your skull ended up in a theme park, being passed by millions of guests on a boat ride about pirates. It's bizarre. It's darkly comic. It's unsettling if you think about it too long. But it also reflects Disney's obsessive attention to detail, especially in the early days. Walt Disney and his Imagineers wanted everything to be perfect. If fake skeletons didn't look right, they'd use real ones. The guest experience mattered more than conventional boundaries about what was appropriate for theme park props. This was the same company that would eventually pump in artificial scents and design custom colors to manipulate perception. Using real bones to make a pirate ride scarier fits that pattern of doing whatever it takes to create the right effect. Modern Disney would never do this. The ethical considerations, the public relations risk, the sheer weirdness of it, all make it unthinkable. But 1960s Disney operated differently. They were inventing theme park design. They were figuring out what worked. And sometimes, what worked was using real human bones as props. So is there still a real bone in Pirates of the Caribbean? Maybe. Probably not. But possibly. The uncertainty is part of the attraction's lore now. Every time you ride through that opening scene, past those skeletons, you might wonder, is one of those real? Am I looking at actual human remains? It adds an extra layer of spookiness. An extra shiver. Not just because you're in a dark ride with pirate skeletons, but because one of those skeletons might be real. Might have been a real person. Might still be there, after all these decades, part of the ride, part of the legend, part of Disney's strangest and darkest secret. Fact number 20. The Haunted Mansion Wedding Ring. As you exit the Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom, walking back toward the bright sunshine and the normal world, look down at the ground. In the concrete, embedded in the path, you'll see something that looks like a wedding ring. A simple band, slightly discolored, pressed into the pavement. And there's a story that goes with it. A tragic story about the ghost bride in the attraction. According to the legend, this ring belonged to the bride from the Haunted Mansion, the one in the attic scene. The story says she murdered her husband on their wedding day, and in her attempt to flee, she dropped her ring as she was escaping. The ring fell and was lost in the construction materials as the mansion was being built. When the concrete was poured for the exit path, the ring was trapped there, embedded forever, a memorial to the ghost bride's crime and her eternal haunting of the mansion. It's a great story. It fits perfectly with the Haunted Mansion's lore. It gives guests something to look for as they exit. It's become a tradition for Disney fans to seek out the ring, to photograph it, to point it out to friends. Cast members sometimes tell the story to guests. It's part of the Haunted Mansion experience for many people. Except it's not real. The ring isn't a ring at all. It's the remnant of a surveying pole, or a construction pole, that was sawed off at ground level when the mansion's exit path was finished. The circular mark in the concrete is just where the pole was, the discoloration from the metal. It happens to look like a ring, but it's completely unintentional. It's an accident of construction that happens to resemble a piece of jewelry. Disney knows this. They know the true origin of the ring, but they haven't corrected the legend. They haven't installed a plaque explaining that it's actually a pole remnant. They've embraced the fan-created story. They've let the legend grow. Some cast members even perpetuate it, telling guests about the ghost bride's ring as if it were official canon. This is actually brilliant on Disney's part. Guests created a story that enhances the attraction. That adds depth and mystery to the Haunted Mansion. That gives people a reason to pay attention to details, to look more carefully at the environment. Why would Disney contradict that? Why would they say, actually, it's just construction debris? That ruins the magic. That diminishes the experience. So Disney lets the legend stand. They might not officially endorse it, but they don't dispute it either. They exist in this comfortable middle ground where the guest interpretation becomes part of the attraction's mythology. It's similar to hidden Mickeys. Disney doesn't officially mark all of them. Some are intentional, some are accidental. But guests hunt for them, find them, share them, and Disney lets this happen because it increases engagement with the parks. The wedding ring legend has become so established that it's now taught to new cast members in some cases. Not as fact, but as a story that guests might ask about or mention. Cast members are encouraged to play along, to maintain the magic. If a guest asks about the ring, you don't say, "That's just a pole." You might say something like, "Well, there are many stories about the Haunted Mansion, and that's one of them," or the mansion holds many mysteries. This represents Disney's understanding that guest imagination is powerful, that sometimes the stories guests create are as valuable as the stories Disney creates. That magic isn't just what's officially designed, but also what emerges organically from people engaging with the environment. The ring matters not because it's really a ring, but because people believe it might be, because it adds to their experience, because it makes them look more carefully at details, because it connects them to the attraction in a personal way. There's something wonderful about this. A random construction artifact, a meaningless piece of metal cut off decades ago, has become a meaningful part of Disney mythology. Thousands of people photograph it every year. They tell their children about it. They return on subsequent visits to see if it's still there. They incorporate it into their haunted mansion experience. And Disney, rather than dispelling the illusion, nurtures it. They let the concrete around the ring remain as it is. They don't repair or replace that section. They protect it. They acknowledge its importance to guests, even though they know its mundane origin. That's a form of magic too. Not the manufactured magic of Imagineering, but the collaborative magic of guests and Disney creating meaning together. So yes, there's a wedding ring in the exit path of the haunted mansion. Look for it. Photograph it. Tell the story of the ghost bride to your companions. And don't worry too much about whether it's real or not. In the context of a haunted mansion filled with illusions and special effects and deliberate storytelling, what does real even mean? The ring is real enough. Its story is real enough. Its power to enhance your experience is completely real. And that's all that matters. A circle of metal in concrete, transformed by imagination into a tragic memorial. That's Disney magic in its purest form. Fact number 21. Animal Kingdom's Night Guard. Disney's Animal Kingdom is unique among Disney parks because it has real animals. Over 2,000 animals representing 300 species live in the park. Lions, tigers, elephants, giraffes, rhinos, gorillas, all calling Animal Kingdom home. These aren't animatronics. They're living creatures with their own behaviors, instincts, and needs. And that creates challenges that no other Disney park faces, particularly at night, when the guests have gone home and the animals remain. Most people don't think about what happens at Animal Kingdom after closing. The park empties of guests around evening. Cast members finish their shifts. The shops close. The restaurants shut down. But the animals don't leave. They're still there, still active. And many of them are most active at night. Lions hunt at night. Many primates are crepuscular, meaning they're active at dawn and dusk. Predatory animals use darkness for cover. This is when they're awake, alert, and potentially dangerous. So Disney has an extensive overnight security and animal management operation. Teams of zoological staff remain on duty around the clock. They monitor the animals through sophisticated camera systems. Every habitat has multiple cameras with night vision capability. These feeds all go to a central control room where staff watch constantly. They're looking for any signs of distress, unusual behavior, or potential security issues. The habitats themselves are designed with multiple layers of containment. There are physical barriers that guests can see, moats, walls, fences. But there are also hidden barriers. Electric fences in some areas. Invisible barriers formed by landscaping that animals naturally avoid. Redundant systems, so that if one barrier fails, others remain. Disney takes animal containment extremely seriously because the consequences of failure would be catastrophic. At night, many animals are moved into secure night houses. These are buildings, not visible to guests, where animals can be locked safely away from any possibility of escape. Not all animals are moved every night. Some can remain in their outdoor habitats safely. But the most dangerous animals, particularly the big cats and other predators, are typically brought inside at night. This protects them and protects everyone else. The overnight staff includes not just security, but also keepers, veterinary staff, and maintenance workers who specialize in the unique challenges of working around animals. They have protocols for everything. If an animal appears distressed, veterinary staff can respond immediately. If there's a breach of containment, security teams are trained in how to respond. They have tranquilizer equipment. They have containment protocols. They drill these scenarios regularly. Disney has never had a major animal escape at Animal Kingdom. No lion has ever wandered into a guest area. No elephant has ever broken through barriers. This perfect safety record is the result of extraordinary precautions, constant vigilance, and sophisticated systems. It's also expensive. The overnight operation at Animal Kingdom costs significantly more than at other Disney parks because of these animal management requirements. There are also environmental considerations. Animal Kingdom has to maintain appropriate conditions for animals, even when the park is closed. Temperature control in buildings where animals are housed overnight. Monitoring of air quality. Maintenance of water features that are part of habitats. The park can't just shut down at night. It has to continue functioning as a zoological facility around the clock. The security teams use technology that would be excessive for a normal theme park. Thermal imaging cameras that can detect body heat, useful for spotting animals in darkness or heavy foliage. Motion sensors calibrated to distinguish between animal and human movement. Sophisticated lighting systems that can be activated if there's a security concern without disturbing animals unnecessarily. Emergency response vehicles staged at strategic locations. There's also coordination with local wildlife authorities. Florida has its own dangerous animals that can enter the park from outside. Alligators, venomous snakes, wild boars. Animal Kingdom's property is adjacent to natural areas. Wildlife can wander in. So part of the overnight security operation involves monitoring for these intrusions and safely removing any wild animals that enter park boundaries. For the animals themselves, the overnight period is important. It's when they can relax without the stress of thousands of guests watching them. It's when they're fed, when their habitats are cleaned, when veterinary care can be provided without disturbing their routines. The nighttime operation ensures the animals remain healthy, safe, and well cared for even when no one is there to see them. This is one of the most impressive things about Animal Kingdom. Disney made the commitment to house real animals, which means committing to their care indefinitely. 24 hours a day. Every day. Forever. The animals aren't props that can be turned off or put away. They're living beings that require constant attention. And Disney delivers that attention through this sophisticated overnight operation that most guests never think about. While you sleep in your resort room, teams of dedicated staff are watching over lions and tigers, monitoring feeds, walking rounds, ensuring that when the park opens again tomorrow, everything is safe, secure, and magical. Real animals, real responsibility, real commitment. That's the hidden side of Animal Kingdom that operates in darkness while the magic waits for sunrise. Fact number 22. The Beatles' breakup location. December 29th, 1974. The Disney Polynesian Village Resort at Walt Disney World. John Lennon is on vacation with his family. He's been separated from Yoko Ono for over a year, though they're beginning to reconcile. He's taking some time away from the chaos of his life, trying to relax in Florida. And on this day, in this Disney resort, he signs legal documents that officially dissolve the Beatles' partnership. The most famous band in history ends not in London or New York, but at a Disney hotel in Orlando. This seems impossible. The Beatles breaking up at Disney World? It sounds like a joke, like something someone made up. But it's documented. Legal records confirm it. The dissolution agreement that ended the Beatles' business partnership was signed by John Lennon at the Polynesian Village Resort on December 29, 1974. The Beatles had effectively broken up years earlier, in 1970. The band had stopped performing together. They'd released their final album. They'd each moved on to solo projects. But legally, the partnership continued. There were business matters to resolve, assets to divide, contracts to terminate. It took years of negotiation and legal wrangling to sort through everything. By 1974, they were finally ready to sign the formal dissolution. The other three Beatles had already signed. Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr had signed their portions of the agreement. But John hadn't. He was traveling. He was dealing with personal issues. He was avoiding the whole thing because signing papers that officially ended the Beatles was painful. But the lawyers needed his signature. The dissolution couldn't be finalized without all 4 Beatles signing. So the paperwork found John at Disney World. He was staying at the Polynesian village, trying to have a normal family vacation. The lawyers tracked him down. They sent the documents. And John, probably recognizing that he couldn't avoid it any longer, signed. Just like that. In a hotel room at a Disney resort, he ended the Beatles. He took a pen and signed his name to papers that dissolved the partnership, that made official what had been emotionally true for years. There's something profoundly sad about this. The Beatles had started in Liverpool, had conquered the world, had defined a generation. They'd performed for hundreds of millions of people. They'd changed music forever. And their legal end came in a hotel room at Walt Disney World. Not in Abbey Road Studios. Not in some dramatic final meeting. Just John Lennon on vacation, signing papers, moving on. But there's also something fitting about it. Disney represents childhood, innocence, magic. The Beatles had been those things for so many people. They'd been the soundtrack to youth and idealism. And now, with the idealism gone, with the partnership failed, with everyone moving into different phases of life, the end came in a place dedicated to preserving childhood wonder. It's poetic, in a melancholy way. The Polynesian Village Resort has never made a big deal out of this. There's no plaque, no marker, no John Lennon signed here, tourist attraction. Disney probably prefers not to emphasize it. The association with a breakup, with endings, with sadness, doesn't fit their brand. They'd rather focus on happiness and new beginnings. So the historical significance of what happened there remains mostly a footnote. But for Beatles fans, for music historians, it's a fascinating detail. The Polynesian village becomes a pilgrimage site of sorts. People stay there and think about John Lennon signing those papers. They imagine him in his room, maybe looking out at the Seven Seas Lagoon, signing away the Beatles while families splash in the pool below. The juxtaposition of vacation joy and personal sadness, of Disney magic and real-world endings. John Lennon would be murdered just 6 years later, in 1980. The Beatles would never reunite. That signature at the Polynesian village was truly final. There would be no going back. The band that had been the biggest thing in music, that had seemed like they could do anything, signed their ending in a Disney hotel room. Sometimes history happens in unexpected places. Sometimes the most significant moments occur not on grand stages, but in quiet rooms when no one's paying attention. The Beatles ended at Disney World. The Fab Four became legal history at a resort designed to make people forget about reality. That's where it happened. December 29th, 1974. The Polynesian village. The signatures were added. The Beatles were done. And somewhere, probably, someone was going down a water slide, completely unaware that music history was being made just above them. Fact number 23. Nixon's crook speech. November 17th, 1973. The Contemporary Resort at Walt Disney World. President Richard Nixon is there for a question-and-answer session with newspaper editors from across the country. The Associated Press Managing Editors Association is holding their annual convention, and Nixon has agreed to speak. This is the middle of the Watergate scandal. The presidency is crumbling around him. Accusations are flying. The press is relentless. And Nixon is desperate to defend himself, to push back, to reclaim his reputation. During the Q&A session, a question comes about his personal finances, about whether he's profited improperly from his time in office. Nixon responds with a line that will define him forever, that will outlive everything else he said or did. People have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I'm not a crook. For words. Delivered at the Contemporary Resort at Walt Disney World. At a place built for families and vacations, and escape from the real world. And those 4 words became one of the most famous quotes in American political history. Not because they were inspiring, not because they were eloquent, but because they were so defensive, so revealing, so pathetic in their desperation. A president of the United States having to declare that he's not a criminal. The irony of the location is almost too perfect. Disney World, the epitome of clean, wholesome American optimism. The contemporary resort, with its futuristic architecture and its monorail running through the building, representing progress and innovation. And there's Nixon, embodiment of political corruption and paranoia, declaring his innocence in a place designed to be the happiest place on earth. The contemporary resort was only 2 years old at the time. It had opened in 1970, one along with the Magic Kingdom. It was one of Disney World's flagship hotels, modern and impressive. Disney must have been thrilled to host a presidential event there. It was prestige. It was validation that Walt Disney World had become important, a place where national political events could occur. But then Nixon said those words. And forever after, the contemporary resort would be associated not with Disney magic, but with one of the most infamous moments in presidential history. "I'm not a crook," said at a Disney hotel. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Mickey Mouse and presidential scandal. Fantasy and corruption. Innocence and guilt. Nixon would resign less than a year later, in August 1974. He was indeed, by most definitions, a crook. He'd participated in the cover-up of the Watergate break-in. He'd obstructed justice. He'd abused the power of his office. His claim that he wasn't a crook was false. And he made that false claim at Walt Disney World. Disney doesn't commemorate this. There's no plaque at the contemporary resort marking where Nixon gave his speech. No historical marker. No mention in official Disney materials. They'd prefer guests not think about it. It's not part of the Disney story they want to tell. They want to be associated with happy memories, not political scandals. But for history buffs, for political junkies, it's a fascinating footnote. Major presidential moments don't usually happen at theme park resorts. They happen in Washington, in the White House, in formal settings designed for government business. But Nixon's most famous quote came from a Disney hotel. Because he happened to be there. Because the editors' convention happened to be there. Because history doesn't always choose dramatic backdrops. There's something deeply American about this, actually. High and low culture mixing. The presidency and Disney World intersecting. The serious and the trivial existing in the same space. That's very American. We're a country where you can have a presidential crisis unfolding at a vacation resort, where Mickey Mouse and political corruption can coexist just miles apart. If you stay at the contemporary resort today, you're staying at a historic site. Not the kind of historic site that gets tours or recognition, but historic nonetheless. Somewhere in that building, in one of those conference rooms, Nixon stood and said, "I'm not a crook." You can walk those same hallways. You can look out at the same views of the Magic Kingdom. You can ride the same monorail. And you can think about how strange it is that this place, built for families and fun, became the setting for one of the most memorable moments of presidential scandal. The contemporary resort remains popular. Guests love it for its convenience, its modernist design, its connection to the monorail. They're not there thinking about Nixon. They're there for Disney. But the history remains. The contemporary resort was where a president tried to convince America he wasn't a criminal. He failed, but he tried. At Disney World. In a place built on the idea that dreams come true. Sometimes nightmares visit too. Fact number 24. The code, a secret. Disney cast members use codes. Lots of codes. They need to communicate with each other about situations without alarming guests. Medical emergencies, security issues, operational problems, all require communication. But Disney doesn't want guests to panic or even notice that something's wrong. So they developed a system of innocuous-sounding codes that mean specific things to cast members while remaining meaningless to guests. One of the most unusual and most frequently used is Code A. Code A doesn't stand for alert or alarm or accident. It stands for ashes. As in cremated remains. As in human ashes. Because with surprising regularity, guests attempt to scatter the cremated remains of loved ones at Disney parks. And when they do, cast members call a Code A. This happens more often than you'd think. People love Disney. For some, their fondest memories are of Disney vacations. They want their final resting place to be somewhere meaningful. And what's more meaningful to a Disney fan than the parks themselves? So families bring ashes. They wait for moments when they're not closely observed, and they scatter them. In the Haunted Mansion, which seems appropriately themed for death. In Pirates of the Caribbean, among the ride's existing skeletons. On flower beds around Cinderella Castle. In the waters around the park. Anywhere they think they can get away with it. This is completely illegal. It's trespassing at minimum. It's potentially a health code violation. It's certainly against Disney's policies. But people do it anyway. They're driven by love, by grief, by a desire to give their deceased family member one final Disney experience. They're not thinking about the legality or the logistics. They're thinking about honoring someone they lost. When cast members spot this happening, or when they discover ashes that have been scattered, they call a Code A. This alerts cleaning crews who are specially trained for this situation. They have specific protocols. They use special HEPA filter vacuum cleaners designed to safely collect fine particles. They work quickly and discreetly. The ride or area might be briefly shut down, though Disney tries to minimize disruption. Within minutes, the ashes are collected, the area is cleaned, and operations resume. The collected ashes are disposed of according to proper procedures. They're not preserved or returned to families, because usually Disney doesn't know whose ashes they are. The scatterers don't announce themselves. They do it secretly and leave. So Disney has no one to return the ashes to. They're simply disposed of respectfully and appropriately, following all relevant regulations. The Haunted Mansion is apparently the most common location for this. The connection to death, to ghosts, to the afterlife, makes it seem appropriate to grieving families. Cast members working the Haunted Mansion are particularly trained to watch for this. They know the signs. Someone acting unusually furtive. Someone with a small container they're being protective of. Someone who seems emotional beyond what the attraction would normally evoke. When they see these signs, they watch closely. And if ashes are scattered, they call Code A. Disney has tried to discourage this. They've publicly stated that scattering ashes is not allowed. They've increased surveillance. They've trained cast members to be vigilant. But it continues to happen. People are determined. They're willing to break rules for what they see as a meaningful final tribute. From a practical standpoint, this creates real problems for Disney. Human ashes are fine particles. They get everywhere. They're difficult to clean completely. They create potential health concerns, though the actual risk is minimal. They also create operational disruptions. When a Code A is called, that area has to be addressed immediately. Rides get shut down. Cast members are diverted from other tasks. It's a significant inconvenience. From an emotional standpoint, it's complicated. On one hand, you can understand the impulse. Someone loved Disney. They wanted to be there forever. Their family wants to honor that wish. On the other hand, it's a theme park. It's a place for living people to enjoy. Making it into an unofficial cemetery is inappropriate. It changes the nature of the space in ways that other guests wouldn't consent to if they knew. There's also the question of respect. Is scattering ashes without permission respectful? Or is it vandalism dressed up as tribute? Disney's position is clear. It's not allowed, it's not appropriate, and it will be cleaned up. But families who do it clearly see it differently. They see it as the ultimate tribute, the final gift they can give to someone who loved Disney. The Code A situation has become something of an open secret among Disney fans. Online communities discuss it. People share stories. Some find it touching. Others find it disturbing. Most agree that while they understand the impulse, it probably shouldn't be done. Disney parks aren't cemeteries. They're not designed or operated as final resting places. There are proper venues for that. But it continues. Code A gets called regularly. Cast members respond. The ashes get vacuumed up. And somewhere, a family believes they've given their loved one the Disney ending they always wanted. While Disney, quietly and efficiently, removes all traces and continues with the show. Because the show must go on, even when guests try to make the parks into something they were never meant to be. Fact number 25, the Disney cats. After the parks close, After the last guests have left, after the cast members have finished their shifts, and the gates have been locked, something interesting happens at Disney parks. The cats come out, hundreds of them. Feral cats that live on Disney property and emerge at night to patrol the parks, hunting for rodents, maintaining an ecological balance that keeps the real mice and rats under control while Mickey reigns supreme during the day. This sounds made up. Disney, the most controlled, most managed entertainment company in the world, has colonies of feral cats? Yes, absolutely. It's one of Disney's most practical and least publicized operational strategies. They don't talk about it much because feral cats don't fit the Disney image. But they're essential to keeping the parks functional. The cats weren't initially planned. They appeared naturally. Walt Disney World is built on what was once undeveloped Florida land. That land had wildlife, including cats that had gone feral, living wild without human owners. When Disney built the parks, the cats didn't leave. They adapted. They found that Disney property provided excellent hunting grounds. Lots of rodents attracted to food waste. Lots of hiding places in landscaping and backstage areas. Water features to drink from. It was cat paradise. Disney could have tried to remove them. They could have trapped and relocated the cats. But they realized something. The cats were providing a service. They were hunting mice and rats. Without the cats, Disney would need extensive rodent control programs. Poison, traps, constant vigilance. The cats were doing this work for free. So Disney made a decision. They would maintain the cat colonies, manage them, provide basic care, and let them continue controlling rodents naturally. This is called a managed colony approach. Disney doesn't just let the cats run wild. They provide feeding stations backstage, where cats can get supplemental food. They provide water stations. They work with veterinary organizations to trap, neuter, and return the cats so the population stays controlled. They monitor the cat's health. They remove sick or injured cats and get them care. It's a humane approach that benefits both the cats and Disney. The cats are primarily active at night because that's when rodents are active and when the parks are empty. During the day, most cats sleep in backstage areas, in shrubbery, in places guests don't go. You might occasionally spot a cat during park hours, but it's not common. The cats have learned to avoid crowds. They're feral, which means they're not socialized to humans. They're not pets. They don't want to interact with guests. Cast members are trained not to approach or feed the cats individually. The feeding stations are sufficient. Personal interaction with feral cats can be dangerous. They can scratch or bite if cornered or frightened. So the policy is, leave them alone. Let them do their job. Appreciate them from a distance. Don't try to pet them or pick them up. There are estimated to be several hundred cats across Walt Disney World property. The exact number fluctuates. Some cats die. Some wander off property. New cats occasionally arrive. But the colony remains relatively stable. Disney's management ensures they don't overpopulate and don't become a nuisance. The cats serve a legitimate pest control function. Florida has enormous rodent populations. The climate is perfect for mice and rats to breed year-round. Without control measures, Disney parks would be overrun. The cats provide a first line of defense. They hunt actively, particularly in areas where food is handled or stored. They reduce rodent populations significantly, which in turn reduces the need for chemical pest control methods. Some Disney fans love the cat program. They see it as humane, practical, and charming. There are online communities dedicated to spotting Disney cats. People share photos. Some cats have become semi-famous among regular visitors. There's a weird sort of celebrity status for certain cats that are frequently photographed. Others are less enthusiastic. They worry about disease transmission from feral animals. They're concerned about cats potentially affecting bird populations. They question whether a theme park should have wild animal colonies. These concerns are valid, though Disney's management and veterinary oversight address most of them. What's undeniable is that the program works. Rodent populations at Disney parks remain controlled. Guests rarely see mice or rats. The parks maintain their cleanliness and their image. And the cats continue their nightly patrols, hunting through empty streets and dark corners, providing a service that most guests never know about. So when you're at Disney and you happen to spot a cat, know that it's part of an intentional program. That cat isn't lost. It isn't a stray that wandered in. It's a working member of Disney's pest control team. It has a job, and it's been doing that job, along with hundreds of its fellow cats, for decades, keeping the real mice at bay so Mickey can reign supreme. Nature and Disney coexisting in an unusual but functional partnership. The cats of Disney World, invisible by day, essential by night, maintaining the magic one rodent at a time. Fact number 26. Gum is banned. Walk into any Disney park. Browse the shops. Look at the candy displays, the snack counters, the merchandise locations. Notice what's missing? Chewing gum. You cannot buy chewing gum anywhere on Disney property. Not in the parks. Not in the resorts. Not in Disney Springs. Nowhere. Disney doesn't sell it. They never have. And this isn't an oversight. It's deliberate policy. Why? The answer is practical and slightly gross. Used chewing gum is a maintenance nightmare. People stick gum everywhere. Under tables. Under seats. On handrails. On the ground. It gets stepped on and smeared across pavement. It's difficult to remove. It's unsightly. It requires specialized cleaning equipment and significant labor to address. And Disney, obsessed with cleanliness and appearance, decided the best solution was to eliminate the source. Don't sell gum, and you dramatically reduce gum-related problems. This policy has been in place since Disneyland opened in 1955. Walt Disney himself reportedly made the decision. He visited other amusement parks during Disneyland's planning phase. He saw gum stuck everywhere. He saw how it degraded the appearance of these venues. He decided his park would be different. No gum sales. The policy continued when Disney World opened and has remained consistent across all Disney properties worldwide. The ban isn't perfect. Guests bring their own gum. Disney can't stop people from entering with gum in their pockets or bags, so there's still some gum in the parks. But the amount is dramatically less than if Disney actively sold it. Most guests don't think to bring gum specifically. They buy snacks and souvenirs in the parks. Since gum isn't available, they don't have it. The reduction in gum volume is significant enough that the policy is considered highly successful. Disney's cleaning crews are still trained to remove gum. They have special tools, scrapers with specific angles, solvents that dissolve gum without damaging surfaces, steam cleaners that can lift gum from pavement. But the amount they have to deal with is manageable. Compare this to other theme parks or public venues that do sell gum. The difference in gum cleanup requirements is substantial. The policy also reflects Disney's broader philosophy about controlling the guest experience. They want to control what's available, what's consumed, how the environment looks and feels. Not selling gum is a small part of this larger strategy. They also don't sell spray string, the colorful string people spray at celebrations, because it makes a mess. They carefully curate which foods and drinks are available because they want to control trash, cleanliness, and health standards. Some guests find the gum ban annoying. People who chew gum regularly might feel deprived. But most guests never notice. If you're not specifically looking for gum, you don't realize it's absent. And Disney has plenty of other snack options. Candy, mints, breath fresheners, all available. Just not gum. The ban has become something of a Disney trivia fact. It's one of those details that gets shared in Things You Didn't Know About Disney articles. And it prompts an interesting question. What else does Disney not sell for similar reasons? The answer is quite a bit. Disney curates their merchandise and food offerings carefully. If something creates maintenance problems, health issues, or appearance concerns, they won't sell it, even if it's profitable elsewhere. This is peak Disney operations thinking. Identify a problem. Find the root cause. Eliminate the cause rather than just treating symptoms. Yes, you could clean gum constantly and make it work. But why deal with the problem at all if you can prevent it? Don't sell gum, don't have a gum problem. It's elegant in its simplicity. The policy also benefits from self-reinforcement. Because Disney has never sold gum, guests don't expect it. They don't ask for it. They don't complain about its absence. It's just how Disney works. If Disney suddenly started selling gum tomorrow, it would be news. It would be controversial. Longtime fans would object. Disney doesn't sell gum has become part of Disney's identity. So that's why you count by chewing gum at Disney. Not because of any deep philosophical reason. Not because Walt Disney hated gum. Just because gum cleanup is annoying and expensive, and Disney decided the easiest solution was to not create the problem in the first place. It's practical. It's effective. It's very Disney. Control the inputs to control the outputs. Manage what's available to manage the results. No gum for sale means less gum underfoot. Less gum underfoot means cleaner parks. Cleaner parks means happier guests and easier maintenance. One policy, implemented 70 years ago, still working perfectly today. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. Fact 27. The 30-step rule. Walt Disney was obsessive about details. Everyone knows this. But the depth of his observational habits might surprise you. He didn't just design attractions and then move on. He studied how people actually used his parks. He watched guests. He timed them. He counted their steps. And from these observations came rules that still govern Disney park design today. One of the most famous is the 30-step rule for trash cans. The story goes that Walt would stand in Disneyland, often in disguise or just observing from a distance, and watch people eat. Hot dogs, ice cream, popcorn, whatever. He noticed a pattern. People would finish their food or their snack. They'd look around for a trash can, and if they didn't see one immediately, they'd walk. About 30 steps, Walt observed. That seemed to be the average distance people would carry trash before they'd either find a can or just drop the trash on the ground. 30 steps. That's roughly 30 feet, depending on stride length. So Walt made a rule. Trash cans should be placed every 30 feet throughout the parks. Never more than 30 feet between cans. This would ensure that guests were always within a short walk of proper trash disposal. They'd never have to carry trash far enough to become annoyed or tempted to litter. This rule has been followed religiously at Disney parks ever since. Walk through Magic Kingdom, Epcot, any Disney park, and count. Trash cans appear with remarkable frequency. You're never more than a few seconds from one. They're everywhere. It seems almost excessive when you notice it. But it works. Disney parks are remarkably clean, considering the number of guests and the amount of food consumed. Litter is minimal. Part of that is because Disney makes it incredibly easy to throw things away properly. The 30-step rule also accounts for how trash cans are positioned. They're not just randomly placed every 30 feet. They're strategically located where people naturally pause or finish eating. Near seating areas, at attraction exits, at pathway intersections, along major walkways. The placement combines the 30-step measurement with an understanding of guest flow and behavior. This is quintessential Walt Disney thinking. Don't just build something and hope it works. Study how people actually behave. Measure. Observe. Then design systems that accommodate real human behavior rather than ideal behavior. People will walk about 30 steps with trash. Okay, put trash cans every 30 feet. Problem solved. It's beautifully simple once you've done the research to understand the problem. The trash cans themselves are also carefully designed. They're themed to match their environment. A trash can in Frontierland looks different from one in Tomorrowland. They blend into the scenery using those go-away green colors we talked about earlier. They're functional, but not intrusive. You can always find one when you need it, but they don't dominate the visual landscape. Modern Disney has expanded on Walt's observations. They study trash can usage patterns. They know which cans fill faster based on nearby attractions and food vendors. They optimize collection routes for cast members who empty the cans. They've turned trash management into a sophisticated operation, but it all started with Walt counting steps. There's something touching about imagining Walt Disney standing in his park, watching a guest eat an ice cream cone, counting how many steps they take before looking for a trash can. He cared that much. He was willing to spend his time on something that granular because he understood that clean parks were essential to the guest experience. Litter creates negative feelings. Clean environments create positive feelings. If 30-foot intervals for trash cans could keep the parks clean, then that's what Disney would do. This philosophy extends beyond trash cans. Disney studies everything about guest behavior. How long people are willing to wait in line. How far they'll walk before needing to rest. What temperature they find comfortable. Where they look when entering a new area. All of this research, started by Walt's personal observations, continues today with sophisticated data analysis and crowd flow modeling. But it began with Walt and his 30-step rule. A simple observation turned into a permanent policy. Walk through any Disney park today, and you're experiencing the result of Walt standing there 70 years ago, watching people, counting steps, figuring out the optimal spacing for trash cans. That attention to detail, that willingness to study human behavior and adapt the environment to it. That's why Disney parks feel different. Why they work better. Why they're cleaner and more pleasant than other venues. Because someone cared enough to count steps. Because someone decided that 30 feet was the right answer. And because Disney has maintained that standard ever since. One trash can every 30 steps. A small detail. An enormous impact. The magic of thinking about everything. Fact 28. The dragon's hidden name. Here's an interesting connection between Disney and space exploration. A crossover fact that bridges our Disney journey with the world of SpaceX. You see, SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft, the one that carries cargo and astronauts to the International Space Station, has a name with a delightfully whimsical origin. And that origin connects directly to a piece of popular culture that Disney helped make famous. The Dragon spacecraft was named after Puff, the Magic Dragon, that gentle folk song from the 1960s about a dragon who lived by the sea and befriended a boy named Jackie Paper. It's a children's song, innocent and nostalgic, and Elon Musk chose this name specifically to mock his critics. When SpaceX was starting out, when Musk was talking about his ambitious plans for spaceflight, for reaching the International Space Station, for eventually going to Mars, people thought he was crazy. They said his dreams were fantasy. They said he was chasing fairy tales. So when SpaceX succeeded, when they actually built a spacecraft capable of reaching the ISS, Musk named it Dragon. It was his way of saying, "You called my dreams impossible. You compared them to fairy tales and magic dragons. And now that fairy tale is real and flying to space. The Magic Dragon isn't just a song anymore. It's a working spacecraft docking with the space station. It's delivering supplies to astronauts. It's proving that dreams dismissed as fantasy can become reality." There's something perfect about this connection between Disney, a company built on making fantasies feel real, and SpaceX, a company making science fiction into science fact. Both organizations share a fundamental belief that imagination and engineering can work together to create things people said were impossible. Disney creates magic through meticulous planning and hidden systems. SpaceX creates breakthroughs through innovation and determination. And both have been dismissed by skeptics who said their goals were unrealistic. The song Puff, the Magic Dragon, itself has an interesting history. It was written by Leonard Lipton and Peter Yarrow and popularized by the folk group Peter, Paul and Mary in 1963. It became a massive hit, beloved by children and adults. Disney never officially owned the song, but it became part of the cultural fabric that Disney represents, that nostalgia for childhood wonder and innocent imagination. When you think about it, naming a spacecraft after a children's song is audacious. It's unconventional. Most spacecraft have serious, technical names or are named after historical figures and concepts. But Musk went with Puff the Magic Dragon, and it worked. The name is memorable. It's approachable. It makes spaceflight feel less distant and intimidating. It suggests that space exploration can have whimsy and personality, not just technical precision. The Dragon spacecraft has now flown dozens of missions. It's become one of NASA's most reliable vehicles for accessing the space station. It's carried astronauts, including NASA astronauts on official missions. And every time it launches, it carries that name inspired by a folk song about a magic dragon. The critics who said Musk's goals were fantasy have been proven wrong over and over. The dragon is real. The magic works. This connection between Disney's world of imagination and SpaceX's world of actual spaceflight is deeper than just a song reference. Both companies understand the power of storytelling. Disney tells stories through theme parks and movies. SpaceX tells stories through achievement and innovation. Both inspire people to believe in possibilities. Both make the impossible seem achievable. Both operate on the principle that with enough creativity, planning, and determination, dreams can become real. So when you visit Disney parks and feel that sense of wonder, that feeling that anything is possible in this magical place, remember that similar feelings drive people to build spaceships. The dragon that lives in a land called Honolulu inspired the naming of a spacecraft that actually flies to space. Fantasy and reality intersecting. Imagination leading to engineering. Dreams becoming hardware. That's the connection between Disney and SpaceX. Between Puff and Dragon. Between the magic dragon of song and the real dragon of spaceflight. And perhaps that's the ultimate lesson both Disney and SpaceX teach us. That the line between fantasy and reality isn't as fixed as we think. That imagination isn't just for children. That dreams dismissed as impossible can, with enough work and belief, actually come true. The magic dragon flies, not in a land called Honolulu, but in orbit around Earth, docking with the space station, proving that sometimes fairy tales and engineering are not opposites but partners in making the impossible real. Fact 29. The Lightning Rod Spire. Florida is the lightning capital of the United States. More lightning strikes occur in Florida than in any other state. The combination of heat, humidity, and afternoon thunderstorms creates perfect conditions for electrical activity. In central Florida, where Disney World is located, lightning is a daily occurrence during summer months. The sky lights up, thunder rumbles constantly, and anything tall becomes a target. This presents obvious problems for Disney. Theme parks have tall structures, castles, mountains, towers, all rising above the surrounding landscape. These are natural lightning targets. A direct strike could cause fires, damage expensive systems, injure guests or staff. So Disney has to protect against lightning constantly. And they do it in clever ways that guests never notice. Take Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom. It's a massive artificial mountain, housing a roller coaster. It rises to about 200 feet tall, making it one of the tallest structures in the park. And at its very peak, at the highest point of the mountain, there's a spire. It looks decorative. It looks like part of the mountain's design. But it's actually a sophisticated lightning rod system. Lightning rods work by providing a preferred path for electrical discharge. Lightning seeks the path of least resistance to ground. A properly designed lightning rod intercepts the strike and channels the electrical energy safely into the ground through conductive cables, preventing damage to the structure and everything inside it. The spire on Expedition Everest does exactly this. It's designed to attract any lightning that might strike the mountain and direct that energy harmlessly away. The system is more complex than just a rod on top. There's a network of conductors running through the mountain's structure, grounding systems buried deep in the earth, surge protection for all the electrical systems inside. The visible spire is just the tip of an extensive lightning protection system built into the mountain, and it's completely disguised. The spire looks like it belongs. It's themed to match the mountain's aesthetic. Guests looking at Expedition Everest don't see a lightning rod. They see a mountain peak. The protection is invisible. The safety system is hidden behind theming. That's very Disney. Take something functional and necessary and make it beautiful. Make it part of the story rather than an obvious piece of safety equipment. This approach is used throughout Disney parks. Cinderella Castle has lightning protection integrated into its spires and towers. The contemporary resort's A-frame structure has protection built in. The Tower of Terror, the Twilight Zone-themed hotel, has systems throughout. Any tall structure at Disney has comprehensive lightning protection, but you'd never know by looking at it. Everything is themed. Everything is hidden. The engineering challenges are significant. Lightning carries enormous amounts of energy, A single strike can involve millions of volts and tens of thousands of amperes. Handling this safely requires careful design. The conductive path has to be robust enough to carry the current without melting or failing. The grounding system has to dissipate the energy into the earth without creating dangerous voltage gradients. And all of this has to work reliably every time, because lightning doesn't give second chances. Disney has extensive monitoring systems for lightning. They track storms constantly. They have weather stations throughout the property. When lightning is detected within a certain range, outdoor attractions are closed. Cast members are trained to bring guests indoors or undercover. The parks take lightning seriously not just because of structure protection, but because of guest safety. Florida's lightning is no joke. People die from lightning strikes in Florida regularly. It's a real danger. Disney's safety record with lightning is excellent because of their preparedness and their systems. The protection built into structures like Expedition Everest is part of a comprehensive approach that includes monitoring, protocols, training, and engineering. For guests, all of this is invisible. You ride Expedition Everest and enjoy the roller coaster. You admire the mountain's theming. You never think about lightning protection. But above you, that spire is standing guard, ready to intercept any strike, ready to protect the structure and everyone in it, ready to channel millions of volts safely to ground while you're enjoying your ride completely unaware. That's Disney magic in a different form. Not entertainment magic, but engineering magic. Solving serious safety challenges while maintaining perfect theming. Building protection systems that don't compromise the show. Making sure guests are safe without making them feel unsafe, or even aware of the dangers being managed. The lightning rod spire on Expedition Everest. Disguised as decoration. Functioning as protection. Standing tall against Florida's storms. Keeping everyone safe while looking like it's just part of the mountain. Silent. Effective. Invisible. Exactly as Disney intended. Fact 30. The brown wavy path. Walk through Liberty Square at Magic Kingdom. It's themed to colonial America, roughly the Revolutionary War period. The architecture is appropriate to the era. The shops sell colonial-style goods. The Hall of Presidents is there. Everything is designed to make you feel transported to 1776. And if you look down at the pathway, you'll notice something unusual. Among the normal pavement, there's a brown, wavy pathway. It winds through the area. It looks like discolored concrete, or maybe a decorative element. But it's not just decorative. Well, it is, but it's decorative with meaning. That brown wavy path represents sewage. Raw sewage flowing down the streets. Because in colonial America, that's what happened. There was no modern plumbing. No sewage systems. People threw their waste into the streets. Chamber pots were emptied out windows. Everything ran in open channels down the middle of streets. It was unsanitary and disgusting by modern standards. But it was normal for the time. Disney, in their obsessive attention to historical accuracy mixed with storytelling, decided to represent this in Liberty Square. They couldn't actually have sewage flowing, obviously. That would be horrifying and completely inappropriate. But they could suggest it through the pavement design. So they created this brown, wavy path that symbolizes the sewage channels. It follows the route that drainage would have taken through the streets. It's historically accurate in concept while being completely sanitary in reality. Most guests walk right over it without noticing or understanding what it represents. It's just pavement to them. But for those who know, for those who pay attention to details, it adds an extra layer of authenticity to Liberty Square. Disney is acknowledging that colonial life wasn't pristine. It wasn't clean. It involved aspects we find unpleasant today. And they're representing that in a subtle, sanitized way that doesn't ruin anyone's experience, but adds depth for observant guests. This is another example of Disney's commitment to themed environments. They could have just built Liberty Square with normal pathways. Nobody would have complained. But they went further. They researched what streets actually looked like in colonial America. They learned about sewage disposal practices. And they found a way to incorporate that knowledge into the design without making it gross or off-putting. The The brown path also serves as a subtle piece of education. If you're visiting with children and you explain what it represents, you can teach them about how people lived in colonial times, about how modern sanitation is a relatively recent development, about how people in 1776 dealt with waste differently than we do now. It becomes a conversation starter about history and progress. There's also something clever about placing this in Liberty Square specifically. Liberty Square is adjacent to Fantasyland, where everything is magical and perfect and fairy tale clean. But Liberty Square represents real history, real America, and real America in the 1700s included sewage in the streets. So Disney acknowledges that reality, even in subtle, symbolic form. The contrast between Fantasyland and Liberty Square is intentional. Fantasy is pristine. History is messier. Disney respects that distinction. They don't sanitize history completely. They include uncomfortable truths, represented in ways that are appropriate for a family-themed park. The brown sewage path is a perfect example of this balance. Some Disney fans love this detail. They seek it out. They photograph it. They appreciate the historical accuracy and the commitment to theming that it represents. Others find it vaguely gross once they learn what it symbolizes. There's something uncomfortable about knowingly walking on a representation of sewage, even though intellectually you know it's just colored concrete. But that discomfort is kind of the point, isn't it? Colonial life was uncomfortable. It smelled bad. Sanitation was terrible. Disease was rampant partly because of these conditions. Disney is making you feel a tiny fraction of that discomfort while you're in Liberty Square. It's immersive design that includes the unpleasant aspects of the era being represented. The brown wavy path is also a reminder that Disney's Imagineers think about everything. They don't just design buildings and attractions. They think about pathways, about how guests move through space, about what every visual element communicates, about how to layer meaning into environments so that people who look closely, who pay attention, who care about details, find additional depth and authenticity. Most guests will never know about the sewage path. They'll walk over it obliviously, enjoying Liberty Square for its general colonial atmosphere. And that's fine. The path serves its purpose either way. But for those who know, for those who notice, it's another example of Disney's incredible attention to detail. Another layer of the magic. Another reason why Disney parks reward repeat visits and close observation. Because even the pathways have stories. Even the pavement has meaning. Even something as mundane as sewage disposal gets represented, subtly and appropriately, in the service of creating the most authentic themed environment possible. Brown waves in concrete, representing history's messier moments. That's Disney, committed to the details, even the uncomfortable ones. And that brings us to the end of our journey through 30 unbelievable facts about Disney. We've traveled from Walt's secret apartment with its eternally burning lamp, to the utilidors beneath your feet, to the cats that prowl at night. We've learned about forced perspective and fake flags, about code words for ashes, and the ban on chewing gum. We've discovered that presidents gave infamous speeches at Disney resorts, that the Beatles officially ended there, that real human bones once decorated pirates of the Caribbean. We've explored how Disney uses smell to manipulate your emotions, how they design trash cans based on counting steps, how they hide lightning rods in mountain spires and represent colonial sewage with brown pathways. We've even discovered a connection to space exploration through the Dragon spacecraft's whimsical name. We've seen how deeply Disney thinks about every detail, from the color they paint utility boxes to the way cast members point, from the training that forbids certain words to the protocols for when people try to scatter ashes. Disney is more than entertainment. It's engineering. It's psychology. It's obsessive attention to detail. It's the accumulation of thousands of small decisions, each carefully considered, each contributing to an overall experience that feels magical even though it's completely manufactured. Disney creates illusions so complete that we believe in them. We suspend our disbelief not because we're naive, but because Disney has thought of everything. They've anticipated every question, addressed every detail, hidden every mechanism. The magic you feel at Disney parks is real, but it's not supernatural. It's the magic of human creativity and determination. It's the magic of refusing to accept that something can't be done and figuring out how to do it anyway. It's the magic of caring about things that other people would consider too small to matter. It's the magic of building a fake mountain and putting a lightning rod on top and disguising it so perfectly that nobody knows it's there. Walt Disney wanted to create a place where adults and children could have fun together, where families could escape the worries of daily life, where imagination could flourish. And he succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Disney parks have become cultural landmarks, destinations that people visit from around the world, experiences that define childhoods and create memories that last lifetimes. But beneath the surface, behind the curtain, inside the hidden spaces, Disney is also a fascinating study in operations, engineering, and human behavior. The parks are laboratories where thousands of experiments in guest experience have been conducted over decades. Every policy, every design choice, every system represents lessons learned and solutions implemented. Disney has figured out how to manage crowds, how to maintain cleanliness, how to create immersion, how to make the impossible seem real. And now you know some of the secrets. You know about the tunnels and the cats, the codes and the protocols, the history and the hidden meanings. You know what you're walking on in Liberty Square and what that lamp in Walt's window means. You know why cast members point with 2 fingers and why you count by gum. You know that when you look at Cinderella Castle, forced perspective is making it seem taller than it is, and that the Dragon spacecraft shares a name with a beloved children's song about a magic dragon. These secrets don't diminish the magic. If anything, they enhance it. Because now you understand how much thought, how much work, how much care goes into creating these experiences. You appreciate the magic more when you know what makes it possible. You see Disney parks differently when you understand the layers of detail and the decades of refinement that have created what exists today. So rest well. Dream of castles and mountains, of adventures and fantasies, of a place where imagination becomes reality through careful planning, obsessive detail, and genuine magic mixed with extraordinary engineering. Dream of Disney, the most magical place on Earth. Now you know some of the reasons why. 30 secrets, 30 facts, 30 ways that Disney creates wonder. Sleep peacefully, and may your dreams be as carefully designed and perfectly executed as everything you've learned about tonight. The magic is real. The secrets are fascinating. And Disney continues, day after day, creating experiences that capture hearts and imaginations, one carefully planned detail at a time. Good night.